But here, the lead story of the New York Times, something that got a lot of Democrats talking yesterday. A lot of Democrats. Voters in 5 battleground states favor Trump over Biden.
All right, let's turn back to that. The latest New York Times Siena College survey, which shows Donald Trump leading President Joe Biden in 5 of 6 battleground states, won by then candidate Biden in the last election. If the election were held today, the poll shows registered voters in Arizona would go for Trump by 5 points, 49% to 44%. In Georgia, Trump's lead 6 points, 49% to 43%. In Michigan, Trump holds a 5-point advantage, 48 to 43. In Nevada, Trump leads Biden by 11 points, 52 to 41. And in Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 4 points, 48 to 44. The only battleground state Biden would retain, according to the poll, is Wisconsin. There, he leads Trump by 2 points, 47 to 45. Voters in those states also say they trust Trump more than Biden to handle most key issues. On the economy, Trump is favored by 22 points.
Look at that. I mean,
on immigration,
22 points. Joe Biden just was, just announcing GDP of over 4%.
Immigration, the lead is 12 points.
4%. It's pretty crazy.
On handling the Israel-Hamas war, Trump holds an 11-point edge over Biden.
In that case, of course, Donald Trump praising the terrorists, praising Hezbollah, and attacking Israel.
And on national security, Trump's lead is 12 points. Biden is favored by 9% on the issue of abortion.
Let's bring in right now the founder and director of Nonpartisan Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, Larry Sabato, and also NBC News managing editor in Washington, Carol Lee. Larry, we're so glad you're here because, well, I had a lot of people calling me yesterday and texting me yesterday. They were all in a lather. It's almost like they thought the election was in a couple of weeks instead of a year. And I know that you always keep things like this in proper perspective. I've got to say, a couple numbers eye-popping here. One that I'm holding up in the New York Times is Nevada, a double-digit lead for Donald Trump. That certainly speaks to younger voters, people of color, Hispanics breaking away from Joe Biden. And also the other number, of course, 22% point lead when it comes to economics. Obviously, the Bidenomics argument sort of fell on deaf ears, didn't it?
Yeah. And you know, what you said first really matters. One thing I've learned over the years, and not just since 2016, is that Democrats actually believe poll numbers and think they're predictive. Republicans dismiss them all and get angry about it and then go out and do whatever they're going to do. There was a lot of panic, and it's really unjustified, although the poll, while I could quibble with some of the numbers, and I have, and I will if you want me to, the poll is a useful warning to Democrats about the job they have to do. And the fact is they have their work cut out for them. The economy is the key to all that. Look, yes, it's 2 presidents, but one is a former president, all right? The other one is the incumbent president. American presidential elections are almost always about the incumbent president, and even a former president as deeply flawed as Donald Trump is the alternative that people turn to if they're upset at the incumbent president about A, B, C, D, E, F. And the economy is most of it. It's not all of it, but it's most of the reason why Biden is having the troubles that he has. Fortunately for him, the election's a year off. It takes a long time for people to absorb new economic realities and new numbers and new trends because they don't believe them at first. They don't feel them at first. Give them enough time.
A new poll from the New York Times shows Trump topping Biden in 5 of 6 critical swing states. And that's apparently rattling some Democrats, including former President Obama's senior advisor, David Axelrod, who says the following, quote, if Biden continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it's in his best interests or the country's. Fox News contributor and columnist for The Messenger, Joe Concha, joins me now. Joe, that is not a subtle hint. I read that as a call to action. Have Democrats reached a new high on the panic meter?
Oh, they've gone off it, actually, at this point, Todd, because let's be abundantly clear. David Axelrod would never make such a statement if he didn't get a thumbs up from his former boss in Barack Obama. I got to clear it with the former president before I put this up on X and have millions of people read this. And you have to wonder if this is paving the way for a possible Michelle Obama candidacy. Now, I personally don't think that she wants to run. But again, you look at that tweet and look at the caps at the end, whether it's in his best interest or the country's. In other words, don't be selfish, Joe. Step down, do what you got to do for the good of democracy or something. And look, Kamala Harris, Todd, as we know, she ain't plan B, despite every contrived media attempt, reboot of her image possible. And poll after poll shows what? Between 70, 80%, even higher of Democrats don't want Joe Biden the sequel. He's losing, as you just showed, in 5 of 6 swing states to Donald Trump, according to that New York Times poll. You look at +10 in Nevada. That's really incredible. Georgia, obviously, +6, Arizona +5, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These are all states that Joe Biden won in 2020. So you see every Democrat out there on X, not every, but a lot more, and fake Republicans like Bill Kristol saying that Joe Biden should drop out. They're in an absolute panic point at this point because they know Joe Biden isn't a fine wine. He's not going to get better with age. And the question at this point doesn't seem to be if Joe Biden drops out, but when, Todd.
And that's a great point about Michelle Obama, because that does alleviate a lot of the concerns you would have by bumping Kamala Harris off the ticket. African-American woman, you don't have that same criticism that the Democrats would receive if they got rid of Kamala. Let's focus on this poll for a second, Joe, because, I mean, look, we've had you on talking about poll after poll after poll. This one just seems really different to me. That Nevada 10-point number really stands out. But these are states that Trump didn't do great in 2020. And look, these are big numbers. And I think the Democrats are scared. Let's listen to one of them, Pramila Jayapal, expressing her concern on this poll.
We have to do everything we can to elect Joe Biden president. You know that I have been an extremely strong supporter of President Biden on the domestic front. This is the first time, Jen, that I have felt like the 2024 election is in great trouble for the president and for our Democratic control, which is essential to moving forward.
I mean, you hear the panic in her voice. She is scared. Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned Michelle Obama. David Axelrod's comment seems to put it in Biden's hands. But you and I well know that the president of the United States, in this case, Joe Biden, doesn't make decisions whether he's going to run or not. This is from the Democratic power brokers. So, Joe, do those people, the DNC, do they make a call to the bullpen in light of these poll numbers?
Wow. I wonder if that does happen, because Joe Biden, I think himself probably thinks, because he's on vacation 40% of the time of his presidency, that's an actual stat, that's an actual number, says, no, I could still do this. It's like trying to take the keys away from grandpa when you said you can't drive anymore. But you're right. Ultimately, the Democratic power brokers will decide this. And the fact that we now have Democratic lawmakers on MSNBC and deliciously on Jen Psaki's show, who couldn't be a bigger supporter of Joe Biden if she tried, saying this on his home turf, so to speak. Yeah, you got to think at some point that the plug will be
A new poll from the New York Times and Siena College causing concern for the Biden campaign this morning. The president is trailing Donald Trump in 5 of the 6 key battleground states that helped him clinch the election in 2020. Biden is also losing support with 2 key voting demographics, Black and Hispanic voters. Those new poll numbers are also raising concerns among top Democrats, including Democratic strategist and CNN senior political commentator David Axelrod. He says, in part, quote, "The stakes of miscalculation here are too dramatic to ignore. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it's in his best interest or the country's," end quote. David Axelrod joins us now. David, appreciate your time. You know when you're typing out these two tweets what the response is going to be. And there's, I guess I would sort of, what's the intent here? What do you want him to decide is in his best interest in the country's?
Look, only he can decide that, Phil. But and I'm not reacting to one particular poll, but a whole body of research and conversations with people. And my concerns, I want to make clear, I think Biden's been a great president. I think he's done things that will have generational impact and importance. I think he's, been honorable in the office. I have nothing but good things to say. But as I've said for like a couple of years now, the issue is not for him is not political, it's actuarial. And you can see that in this poll. I mean, there's just a lot of concern about the age issue. And that is something that I think he needs to ponder. Just do a check and say, is this the right thing to do? I believe if he does run, he will be the nominee. And I'm not encouraging people to challenge him. I think the party should fall in behind him if he's the nominee of the Democratic Party, because at the end of the day, this is not a normal race. This is a race about democracy and the state of our democracy and the survival of our democracy. And that's the threat on the other side here. And I know how deeply the president feels about that. So he just has to ask himself, is this the best path? I suspect that he will say yes. But time is fleeting here, and this is probably the last moment for him to do that check. And it's probably good if he does.
You use a lot of ifs in that answer, and there's the if in your tweet, if he continues to run. Do you have information from reliable sources around him that is still an if in his mind? And if not him, then who?
To the contrary, no.
To reach out to their neighbors. That's how you win elections.
So let's get to what we're talking about here. In the latest New York Times Siena College survey, Donald Trump leads President Joe Biden in 5 of 6 battleground states won by then candidate Biden in the last election. If the election were held today, the polls show registered voters in Arizona would go for Trump by 5 points, 49% to 44%. In Georgia, Trump's lead is 6 points, 49% to 43%. In Michigan, Trump holds a 5-point advantage, 48% to 43%. In Nevada, Trump leads Biden by 11 points, 52% to 41%. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 4 points, 48 to 44%. The only battleground state Biden would retain, according to this poll, is Wisconsin.
Interesting, Wisconsin trends older and whiter. And weirdly enough, those are the only voters that Biden hasn't bled support from.
Voters in those states also say they trust Trump more than Biden to handle most key issues. On the economy, Trump is favored by 22 points. On immigration, his lead is 12 points. On handling the Israel-Hamas war, Trump holds an 11-point edge over Biden. And on national security, Trump's lead is 12 points.
Let's just stop for 1 second there.
Can we just stop right there?
Just stop. If you look at the Israel-Hamas war,
oh my God,
you have Donald Trump, who 11-point favored by voters, 11 points. He has called Hezbollah terrorists smart. He's complimenting the terrorists and he's attacking Israel. And he's up plus 11. What does that tell you? The economy, again, just absolutely bizarre. I'm not going to go into the numbers right now. Inflation's been a problem for Biden, but by every other measurement, Joe Biden is just doing so much better. Donald Trump had a miserable 4 years if you look at his numbers over the 4 years. But again, these things don't matter to voters. It's, in politics, as Henry Kissinger once said, perception is reality. And what the Biden White House better figure out quickly is, why is perception so upside down?
All right. So, by the way, Biden is favored by 9% on the issue of abortion, despite there being just a 3-year age gap between the two candidates. 71% of the poll's respondents say Biden is too old to be an effective president, while only 39% say the same about Trump.
So,
this is why Donald Trump is, trumping around the country, literally making no sense on stage, sweating bullets and forgetting who he's running against.
Well, not just that, and let's keep these numbers up. Donald Trump, the guy on the right, often forgets where he is. People have to go up and whisper, telling that you're not in the city you said you were in. He also continually forgets who he's running against, thinks he's running against Barack Obama, keeps saying he's running against Barack Obama. But again, perception's reality. And the perception here is every time Joe Biden gives a speech, from the very beginning, right-wing Trump supporters on TV and also online, they'll cut a part of his speech and make him look like, he's an idiot or he doesn't remember what he's saying. And there's so many times I go and look. Sometimes I'm like, oh, geez, that's not good. Yikes. But you know what? Most of the times I'm looking at it, I go, wait a second. He didn't fall asleep. He closed his eyes. He was crying, like I'm thinking about those flying firefighters.
Welcome to the Monday edition of the Nick and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
Hey, what's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Nick and CJ show on Monday. And I love how the concept of the lesser of two evils took the biggest L I've ever seen in my entire life. I seen the victory lap that I've been taking. You guys know that. I saw Bree, like she was going after everyone who criticized her take. I'm not voting Biden. Jimmy was going after people. The illusion that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils was utterly destroyed in less than 2 years. And now, because the Israel-Hamas conflict, the slaughter of the Palestinians and the genocide that Joe Biden is supporting, now that's the trigger for a lot of people where it's over, even though he had Anthony Blinken as foreign policy advisor. But the illusion, and this is where the cope come from in Morning Joe, there's so much cope there. And CJ, feel free to interrupt me. Feel free.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you.
The illusion that Biden is calmer than Trump, that Trump is way more unhinged than Biden, that was utterly destroyed. Joe Biden bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. He's the biggest eco-terrorist in human history. He funded neo-Nazis in Ukraine to escalate World War III. And do you guys know that Joe Biden is now threatening war with Iran?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me pull this up because this is in here. Yeah, I got to pull it up here. This is Biden. Now, in the defense of Israel, he wanted to launch World War III. The New York Times reports U.S. officials have sent messages to Iran and Hezbollah to say the U.S. would be prepared to intervene militarily against them if they launch attacks against Israel. Remember when Bernie Sanders in the entire Democratic Party told you that Donald Trump was the unhinged one the one to start war with Iran? That's Joe Biden. It was Joe Biden who sent nuclear submarines to Australia. And I'll pass to you, CJ, this last thought. But do you remember this conversation we had with Jimmy? It was a few months ago where we actually said it was a good thing that Democrats won, because I know something in my life, right? There's a pattern. It's actually better when the Democrat win, because that radicalizes people more. Like that is what shreds the illusion, the lesser two evils. Like when Barack Obama came in, he turned my generation off. Now there's Gen Z people and people who are hard-headed and now going through this lesson again. But that was my lesson. And then the generation before me, their lesson was Bill Clinton, for example. What Trump did, he radicalized people and shifted them to the left. You had liberals that thought they were socialists because they opposed Donald Trump. They all of a sudden was anti-war, they anti-ICE. They talking about abolish the ICE, abolish the police. What a Republican do, what they do, they shift liberals to the left. They shift people in the suburbs to the left. When a Democrat get in charge, people see the complicity in the class politics at play when you have liberal Zionists cheering on a genocide that's sponsored by their government. Amazing. Imagine if Donald Trump was president right now. And one last thing, I'll pass it to you, CJ, because I want to shout this out just real quick, and I'll pass it to you because our friends at the Palestinian Community Network, and I need to get them back on the show. I'm still in contact with Ashley and them. They do fantastic work, like just incredible work in terms of holding the ruling class accountable. So President Joe Biden is going to be in Chicago on Thursday. And I repeat, my friends, Joe Biden is going to be in Chicago this Friday, and the Palestinian Community Network is planning to be there to protest Joe Biden. Our friends, they joined us at the Anti-Imperialist Summit, and quite a few other shows. I think we had on the Joe Strike Summit as well. Here's a tweet: President Genocide Joe Biden will be in Chicago Thursday, September 9th. Chicago Coalition for Justice in Palestine and the Palestine Community Network are calling on all Palestinians and supporters to join us to protest his support of Israel in the Gaza genocide. So if you're in Chicago, my friends, my family in Chicago, Kit, you listening? Joe Biden's going to be here. So CJ, I'll pass to you.
Yes, hopefully Kit or somebody Kit knows will have some time to maybe cover that. That would be great. But like you said, let's get to back to this poll, which I love these polls, Nick, because these polls where they have to pretend like it's not a big deal, as you can see the sweat beads bubble up on their heads. You can see the sweat beads bubble, but they're going, everything's great. Everything's great. That's literally what with this COPE session.
They cover in their failed report card, CJ.
Yes. Yes. So imagine you have to come home, Nick, and explain 5 F's on your report card, Nick. Imagine to your parents, you wouldn't be sweating. You'd be telling them, no, I just gotta turn in a couple of assignments. That F is gonna go straight to an A.
If you're a new viewer,
what you'd be doing it. Go ahead.
If you're someone new to RB, and we explained before how polls, and especially their coverage of polls, is essentially their report card. You know what I mean? Like whenever they see polls that Joe Biden's up in the polls, they're like, yes, our shit is working. They pat themselves on the back. And then whenever polls like these happen, it's like a kid going home explaining to their mama what happened. You know what I mean? But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah. So the poll comes out, New York Times. I had to play as much as I could in the intro because this, Nick, is the longest segment that I've seen on Morning Joe. Just like when you have time, just go there and just time it and go, wow, no commercials? Like
CJ,
I put like 2 segments together. Go ahead.
CJ, I caught up on this literally the last hour as I was preparing the show. They have like 3 segments on YouTube they drop on this. So you know this segment was long. The segment was so long, they dropped 3 different YouTube clips on it. I'm like, damn, they've been bitching about this for like 30 minutes, bro. But go ahead.
I've never seen it. We're not going to be able to cover all of it, but we're going to probably try to cover 7 or 8 minutes of it. It is completely COPE. It is beautiful to see. Let's watch.
If you looked at like 10 seconds of the clip, 20 seconds of the clip, it was all what we all do in memorial services at times where we're overwhelmed. But again, perception is reality. And from the
So this is where, and if you've been watching, you've already we've played up into this point, but this is where, Nick, they're trying to pretend as if Joe doesn't have visible cognitive decline. This is where they try to pretend because they have to explain this number. How is it that they're only 3 years apart, but that's closer to being double? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's close to being double the amount.
Yeah.
8 more points. That's double the amount that he would have of this guy, but they're only three points because because this is the problem, Nick, when you have to use propaganda and not talk about what's real, because they're using propaganda just talking about age, the number, without talking about what's real, which what visibly
Absolutely,
people
TJ.
see between the two. We don't see a slowness in Donald Trump's speech from 4 years ago. We don't see that. We don't see a slowness in his walk. He doesn't walk to one edge of the stairs and then people have to call him to the other side. Like these things don't
TJ, you see, they
happen.
take examples of when. Sorry, just shortly, but they take examples.
No,
of when
you're gonna
Trump
go right to
misspeak.
the point. Go ahead.
Yeah, they take examples of when Trump like misspeak, like he will call someone the wrong name,
Right.
like, see, look, he's better at Joe Biden. Like no one buys that. But go ahead, CJ.
No, that was it. You're great minds thinking like I was going right to the same part, and then when you get to Donald Trump, they try to play. This is how I was gonna say it. They try to play a person being stupid as having cognitive decline.
Exactly.
Yeah, a person who is rich who don't have any care into knowing the details about the names of people and the names of cities. You get what I'm saying? They're trying to compare that to cognitive decline, and it's not working. And their report card show it. But let's play some more of the video.
the very beginning, you've had Trump people and people on certain cable news networks. They'll try to find any clip, and they've hammered this home. So again, you can whine about it, or you can push back against it. Fight harder, work harder, because perception is reality. And right now, perception is screwed up.
53% of those voters also say they have been personally hurt by the current president's policies, compared to 35% who have been helped.
Nick, you know how bad this is?
Yeah.
You know how bad this is? They've been pushing Biden economics, and they're saying they've been hurt by Biden's politics.
I gotta pay back student loans now because of Joe Biden. Like, I'm fucking broke as hell. I don't know how I'm gonna do that shit. You know what I mean? And my mom was just talking about this like 2 days ago, like, just to interject a personal story. She was like, man, it's crazy how we gotta pay student loans back. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, yep, there's Joe Biden for you. Like, people are pissed over this, bro. Like, and people can and Democrats can make all the excuses they want. You know what I mean? Like, well, of course they were happy in Trump. People are not making that rationale in their head. They see Joe Biden and making us pay more money. We got less money because of Joe Biden, let alone the state violence part of it. But go ahead, CJ.
And this is the reason why these polls send shockwaves. Because if this was some random, The Hill poll, they'll be like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is the New York Times. This is CNN. It's certain polls where it's like, CNN is another one. Fox News is another one. It's like, this is some bullshit right here. Because this is the inverse, Nick. Look, they're saying Trump's policies helped them 51%. That's the majority. More Democrats register? Doesn't that means some Democrats are saying Trump is better on economics?
This is fucking crazy, man.
That's what that was saying. And that's the same reaction I would have. Let's get back to the video. Let me know where you wanted to stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll talk about that. On the flip side, 51% of those same voters say Trump's policies have helped them, while 34% say the opposite. And this is the reason our phones were exploding yesterday, with people really, really freaked out and upset. And it does beg the question, if there are Democrats out there who are concerned, or even moderate Republicans, about the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump,
right?
I think the the real concern here is disinformation, the electorate being poisoned.
Understand, as you're listening to her, understand the audience. Listen to the language. Listen, look at the setup of the screen. This is a PowerPoint presentation for donors, for the establishment. This is not for us. You understand? Look at the guy in the bottom right-hand to left-hand corner. That's David Ignatius, the writer who they say Joe Biden, the guy, President Joe Biden reads him. This is the writer that Joe Biden reads. Okay, the guy in the bottom right-hand corner. They always bring in these people, so-called historians. I think they're intelligence people, Nick. Why are these random historians get these? Yeah, that's one of them. Yep.
Yeah, John Meacham in the bottom. I seen a little bit of this part. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he's like they always advertise him as presidential historian.
Right.
This guy is a DNC media plant, a pro-war psychopath, but the establishment respects him. You guys know this is such a bad situation for them. You notice how Mika mentioned they got phone calls, CJ. Their friends, their close friends. What happened? I thought you said we was okay. So now they got to bring people on like, hey, explain what's going on here, man. We fucked up big time here. Explain what's like this to me. This is now crowd explaining what the fuck's going on. You know, go ahead, CJ. I know you.
No, but to your point, to piggyback right off what you just said, think about why would they be calling them, Nick? Unless
like,
it's their report card. You are responsible for these numbers not being where they are. Wouldn't you call the source? Wouldn't the donor call the source? This is why their phones was off the hook, Nick. They're telling us without telling us the inner workings of this whole shit. Go ahead. Look at their face.
We get right to it, but look, I want you guys to pay attention to like the mood of the segment. Remember the segments we showed you guys not even that long ago, maybe a few months ago, where Joe Scarborough like Donald Trump and MAGA. They are fucking screwed. Y'all don't understand. Americans hate Donald Trump. Man, y'all motherfuckers, y'all don't understand. Joe Biden is not to be underestimated. Joe Biden, he's in top form right now. Y'all think y'all always underestimating Joe Biden. Y'all remember those segments? He had a swag on him like, man, y'all underestimating Joe Biden. So that's why they getting phone calls like, hey, bro, what you miss? What's going on? I thought everything was good. What's going on? Your propaganda is not working. But let's continue.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, so just their faces. Let's go.
And I mean, it's not like the contrast between these two are Republican and Democrat and conservative versus liberal policies. Right. It's not, I mean, President Biden has accomplished a lot in his presidency, and there are those who would say it's even historic. And then you have a guy with 91 counts against him, liable for fraud, liable for sexual abuse. I mean, I could go on for 4 hours.
Judge said he raped a woman. Yeah.
And that's where the concern is here. That there's a lot of different.
Let's continue. All right.
Layers of things going on.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, though, perception's reality. And that's what when I had people going, yeah, but this, yeah, but that, yeah, but. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Perception is reality. Stop your whining. The poll numbers are the poll numbers, and they're just poll numbers. Still a year out. But I'll tell you what.
Doesn't matter. Stop your whining. Okay, they're F's. Okay, mom and dad. The F's are the F's, mom and dad. What do you want me to do? Huh?
We still got a year. I still got a long school year left. Come on, man, stop tripping. We still got a long school year.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying right here.
They're getting worse, and it kind of reminds me of a basketball game where you're watching one side that is,
now you guys see my me
doing everything right. The other side
to us. Amy said, "I'm starting to think Morning Joe the funniest show on TV." This shit is funny to me, man.
This is humor to me. I'm just gonna go 30 seconds forward because I want to get to the next speaker. This guy right here. Let me go 15 seconds behind so he can introduce him.
They're still only tied at halftime. That's what I'm thinking about these poll numbers, John Heilman. I mean, you look at all of the bipartisan legislation Biden's done. You look at the good news on the economy on many fronts. You look at what's happened with NATO, and a lot of good things to say about what's happened with Joe Biden. Yet here he is 3 years later. A lot of things going right for him. and Donald Trump, 91 counts against him. He's talking about, getting rid of the Constitution. He's getting crazier every day on stage.
Yeah.
He's just saying, I'm going to just start arresting people after I'm president of the United States. He says he's going to suspend the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and he's ahead. So I don't know exactly how this gets any better moving forward. It's not like Donald Trump's not been crazy enough to be punished by voters to be unfit to be president of the United States.
Well, like happy Monday. Thanks, Joe. This is a very kind of
Monday.
cheerful way to wake up here on a Monday morning after next weekend. I think that's the point. I think I'll tell you what the Biden White House is not worried about, and what Democrats out there shouldn't be worried about is one set of polls. You just made this point. It's not the fact that these polls say what they say. It's one set of polls. Don't worry about it. It's also not that Trump is, quote, ahead in 5 of those 6 battleground states. They are all those polls are very close to or within the margin of error. They are essentially statistical ties. Those are not things to worry about. Things the Biden White House worries about, and that Democrats who support Joe Biden should worry about, is that these polls are part of a pattern. They have shown they've been across a lot of polls, across a lot of weeks now, across a lot of months. To your point about perception being reality, it's not just the perception's reality, it's the perception that's sunken in some quite deep way about things like Joe Biden's age, about things like the relative strengths and weaknesses of Donald Trump and Joe Biden on certain sets of issues and on certain sets of character traits. That's a thing that worries the White House. And I'll tell you, the other thing that really worries the White House and should worry the White House and should worry Democrats is this erosion of support with core Democratic constituencies. Again, not just in this poll, but in poll after poll after poll. Joe, you've got this in this poll right now. Joe Biden among voters under 30. Joe Biden is up by 1 point.
Voters under 30, Nick. 1 point. That's a dead heat. Remember they kept banking on that? Young voters, we got them. Twice as many. We got the future. Do you? 1 point, Nick, in a poll. That is what's sending shockwaves. And then this next number, I'm going to let them, I paused it for a reason. Listen to this.
Just think about that for a second. A Democrat running against Donald Trump. He's up by 1. Donald Trump right now in these polls across the 6 states has 22% support among African Americans.
22%, Nick, of our African brothers and sisters.
1 out of 5.
Yes, and we covered it. I mean, we kind of covered it as a funny segment. It was some TikTok videos that was showing, but it's real, Nick. It's real. There, he has a constituency, and I don't think the 91 counts.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think the 91 counts helps because it makes him look sort of like a martyr in the Black community. Just a side point, I literally sneeze like 3 times a year. So you guys caught one sneeze.
Let's go.
Out of this year, I never sneeze. I sneeze like I will sneeze like 1 time a year. Something must be here that's causing me. Maybe some pepper I was eating on this table earlier. So I never sneeze. So, but yeah, let's play the video and then we'll comment some more.
Historically low support levels for Joe Biden among African Americans, Hispanics, and young voters. If Joe Biden doesn't fix those problems with his core constituencies, he will lose to Donald Trump.
Them Gen Z influencer kids are in trouble.
Right. Aren't those the people, Nick, that's at the DC march? Aren't those constituencies the ones he just said? Black, Hispanic. I saw a bunch of Black and Hispanics at the march I was at. Young people. Isn't that what they're complaining about? When we get to that segment, a DC segment, we're gonna see. They're complaining. So this is where they're in this position, Nick, the Democrats. It's like they want to go ham, for example, with Israel, but it's like, damn, we're gonna lose a ton of people, and they're seeing it instantly in these polls. Instantly, they're seeing it. In Michigan, they can say bye-bye to Michigan. A Democrat cannot win the White House, and when we get to that segment, that part, they're gonna say it in the video, without Michigan. Do you understand that? They cannot win the White House without Michigan because Ohio is not in a flip-up anymore. Ohio is now red. That's going red. They don't know what to do. So anyway, let's get back to the video. He makes a couple more points.
White House has been seeing erode over the course of the last 6 months to a very worrying degree. And this poll puts a very stark spotlight on those particular problems, those attribute problems and the parts of
Nick, you should encounter this. I bet you're going to encounter this more because you are engaged. You're in the timelines of so many liberals. They don't have that counter anymore, but we have the young voters. 2022. Yeah. Remember, we had young vote. You don't have that now. Look at this number, Nick. That is crazy. It's usually twice the amount, Nick.
Yeah, like I said earlier, those Gen Z influencer kids, they're in big trouble. Their contract is in jeopardy, and they don't turn these numbers around.
Harry, whatever
Sisson, bro, you're in trouble, bro. I told you guys, those kids gonna ruin it. Like those, I blame them. Like I don't know if that's the most sophisticated political analysis, but I blame Harry Sisson and those Gen Z TikTok kids directly for these numbers.
Talk about the erosion of core constituencies in the Democratic coalition. Those are the things to worry about. The White House is worried about them, and Democrats should not be panicking, but they should take those things really seriously.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to talk about the young voters in a second.
He's going to pivot to the black guy, of course.
Al, because there's just been the thought that maybe Joe Biden's too old, or maybe it's this issue, or maybe it's that issue. I'll tell you, I know a few young voters who can't buy a house and haven't been able to buy their first house for years now because interest rates are too high, or before that it was COVID. And so there are a lot of different things going on. If you want to look at the part of the economy where actually reality is reality instead of perception is reality, it's high interest rates keeping people out of buying homes, and young people under, let's say, 40 are disproportionately impacted by that. But I want to talk about people of color, Reverend Al. If Joe Biden were to give up 22% of the share of black voters to Donald Trump, that would be the highest percentage any Republican candidate got in the post-civil rights era since 65. And for all candidates, Donald Trump, for God's sake, I mean, the most racist candidate we've had.
Explain what's going on in your community, sir. What the fuck is going on over there?
Look at Mika. What's up with the Negroes? What's up with the Negroes, Al? What's up with the Negroes?
How are you not embarrassed by your I know they pay you a fucking ton, but how are you not embarrassed? They bring you out to scold you. And Mika like, yeah, Al. What the fuck is going on here? Now you fail your report card. This is your turn. We're scolding you now. Oh, Jesus Christ. This guy had no dignity, but let's continue. That's so hilarious.
Well, not only the most racist candidate, I think the most racist president, when you look at what he did in office that disproportionately impacted blacks and other people of color.
Disproportionately impacted blacks. I don't know, a clearer 4 seconds, Nick, where we clearly see this guy is not advocating for the black community.
At all.
Did you hear what he just said?
Yeah.
Do we know that Joe Biden signed the 1994 crime bill? This guy, did you hear? He just said that has impacted the black community the most. Trump. I mean, I would go with Reagan, but if you said another Republican, okay, Reagan, but you gonna talk about some Trump? Joe Biden had put hundreds of thousands of black and brown, indigenous, and poor white bodies in prison. In this state, I know several people, Nick. Crazy. He's a sellout. And he goes in and try to act like he shows up at these high profile murders of black people so he can get the street cred. And then he comes on here to sell us out.
You know, guys, you know how many times I laughed in people's face when they suggested that Donald Trump has a worse record regarding the black community than Joe Biden? I laugh in people's face and no one ever can count. If you think that Donald Trump did more harm to the black community in 4 years than Jim Crow Joe did in his entire 40 plus years and what he's continuing to do, you are out of your goddamn mind. That is the height of Trump derangement syndrome. You know Joe Biden, the guy who weaponized the DOJ and went after the Uhuru Black Socialist movement? The administration that's trying to go after Amali? and claiming that black socialists are Putin and Russian puppets? The guy who was spent at DHS and $6 billion more than Donald Trump? That's the guy you guys gonna say? The guy who deported more Haitians in his first year than Donald Trump did in 4? You got to be the most uninformed person. You got to be part of the dumb left, like Emma Vigeland and TYT and Majority Report and the others. You got to be among the dumbest person to believe that. It's a completely fact-free way of viewing politics. It's just feelings and vibes. I think he says nice things, he tweets nice things. He got a black vice president. He appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? You guys know it's just dumbass shit. You know what I mean? These are the people who consider serious, while RBN is considered we're just uneducated shit talkers, I guess. But go ahead, CJ.
The problem is that you must do, as you said at the beginning of the show, Joe, work harder. There will be two ways to react to these polls. You can give your theories on why they're wrong, why they're polling wrong, who they're not reaching, this, that, or the other. Or you can say, let's accept the poll and go to work and see where we can turn it around. I was...
You notice how he is giving Morning Joe, those white boys and their audience, tips on how to trick black people to support their policies, instead of saying, hey, yo, you guys should do more for the black community. They don't support Jim Crow Joe. You guys are not doing enough. And you said this earlier, at no point in this segment or any segment that you will ever see this guy on, I've seen quite a few, does he ever actually advocate for black people. He's not even pretending. He doesn't say, black people are upset with Joe Biden. He need to put for reparations. He need to decrease the state violence, fight against Cop City, address material conditions in homelessness that impact our community, and give people health care that impact our community. At no point does he tell the Democrats to do stuff for us. Like, he's a traitor of the highest order. We already knew that because he was a Fed. But let's continue.
Blessed in my young years to hang around Muhammad Ali. And he used to tell me that he liked...
Quote Muhammad Ali, you piece of shit. Oh, I let it play, but God, the audacity. Don't ever... Jesus Christ.
No, but this is how they sell themselves to the white power structure, is what he just did. Look at this picture I took. And then he tells these fantastical stories about it, knowing the person is dead and can't refute it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, I knew him, so I got street cred because this and that. That's what he does. That's what he does. But let's go.
His trainer in the corner between rounds telling him he was losing even if he was winning. He said, because even if I was in the fight, in the way I was scoring in my head, on my head, it didn't matter. It's what the judges said. And it doesn't matter to the Democrats what they think. It matters if that's what they're saying we're at. They need to work harder. They need to stop making excuses and rationalizing and go to the base, including black voters, and pull ahead. It's just that simple.
Yeah, stop whining, start working. And I know there are a lot of Democrats out there that are working quietly, but you got to work harder. That's just the bottom line of it. And I agree, Rev. In my first race, I was down by 20, 30, 40 points the entire race. The last weekend, the poll came out and had me like 1 or 2 points ahead. It was the only time. I got scared when our staff started saying, oh, my God, you're ahead. And I went crazy going, we're 20 points behind. We're 20. Work harder. We're going to lose. Like, that's what you've got to always have that, Rocky would talk about the eye of the tiger. That's what you got to need.
The liberal black outreach thus far has been calling them Putin puppets and Hamas terrorist sympathizers. That's what they've been... All the liberal blue checks on Twitter have been screeching at all these peace activists. That's them working. That's them working to win over the community. They call us secret Trump supporters. You know what I mean? Crypto fascists. I'm like, man, you guys not even trying to win. They're just trying to see how many people they can bully into submission. But let's continue.
Yeah, so what I want to do now, because that's the first part I wanted to show. I do want to go back. I didn't know if I would have time, so I started. Before he started talking about the polls, Nick, and you know this because you saw the Morning Joe, he had to set the polls up. He talked for like 4 minutes to prepare the donors, it's so telling that they're not talking to us. Because that he talked literally for like 3 or 4 minutes to prepare people for the poll they were getting to. They didn't show a single poll until well into like the 4th minute of the show, Nick, when this is the first story. So I just do want to show a little bit of that just so you can see the emotional sort of propaganda that they use. Maybe you'll watch a minute and a half or something like that, but let's listen.
No.
Yeah.
But it's a good indicator. And the thing I always loved about polls, Mika, and I know you're saying, what did Joe love about polls? Is not that they were a predictor of what was going to happen. I always looked at trend lines.
Yeah.
And that's what always mattered. If I went from being up by 20 to being up by 15, I immediately said, where am I losing support? If something broke in another way and I was losing support in a certain area, I got over to that area. Well, Joe Biden is having real problems right now, holding traditionally Democratic support. Mm-hmm. And that's what we should look at these polls about, not that they're predictive.
I think what's just a little bit traumatic for Democrats, if they are freaking out as much as you feel they are, is that the contrast between these two candidates is like nothing I think we've seen in history. And it's a little bit depressing in terms of the mood out there, in terms of disinformation, right-wing media, and a number of narratives that may have sunk in that Joe Biden has to push back against. And many of them are flatly untrue. We're not dealing in the same reality.
And what does that mean? What does that mean?
They're telling us, Nick, they said we're not dealing in the same reality. I'm going to let him explain after she said that, and then we'll close this. But they're telling us because they're not talking to us. This is why I love watching Morning Joe. Now I'm so addicted to just, it's addictive like a comedy show, not addictive like, man, I want to learn something today. But it's like, man, what jokes are they telling today? Let me see these punchlines today. And that's how I watch it. But you heard what she said. We are not living in the same reality if these poll numbers, because the poll numbers are living in truth and they are trying to mask that. And it is such a shocking thing to them. But go ahead, Nick, and I'll play this last part.
Just real quick. Morning Joe is interesting to me just because, as I said many times on the show, Morning Joe, it shows you exactly what the empire is thinking. Like, this show is the media arm of the government. Like, the people they get, they get CIA, FBI people, they get Anthony Blinken, the government officials on. What you hear on Morning Joe is literally what the United States is printing out as news, what they want you to think, what they want you to hear. It's almost as if the United States government has a voice. On top of that, it's comedy because you can see how unhinged our government is. So when you make those two connections, because there's another segment that we may or may not have time for today, but we're going to get bonus show for you guys this week, where MSNBC with Fox News is teaming up with Zionists to suppress free speech. So they bringing on these unhinged students to talk about how the young people are pro-Hamas. Like, they are completely out of bounds and unhinged. Remember, that's what the government thinks. This is the ruling class network. That's why it's almost like I'm a big fan of nature documentaries, right? Like you watch lions, see how they raise their kids or family, whatever. That's what watching Morning Joe to me. It's like I'm watching these animals in action. Like, I'm watching these animals justify a genocide. You watch these animals justify arming Nazis. So to me, it's almost like the science of propaganda, how the most propagandized country in the world works. And once again, I'm a nerd, so I find it interesting. But let's continue, CJ.
Yeah, so let's let Joe answer, and then I'll just show you a headline, and we'll close this segment.
Work harder. That's what it means. It means work harder. If people are lying about you, work harder to get out at the truth. If American democracy is on the line, work harder. If you have a guy who has said, let's suspend the Constitution of the United States because I didn't win, work harder. I mean, if you've got people lying all the time, and Donald Trump, once again, this Washington Post article we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Wow. He just goes there.
And it's not like Joe Biden hasn't given them material to work with.
Yeah, well, Yeah, gives
This
them
is
reasons to
prep
knock
talk.
on doors, gives them reason to make phone calls, gives them reason to reach out to their neighbors. That's how you win elections.
So let's
So that was the cope. They got to the poll 5 minutes into the show. They had to prep their audience, who was not ready, was in panic mode for
That was a prep
several
talk.
days. They had to do that in order to get them ready for the poll. They had first couple of minutes when I didn't play, they had to downplay the poll. Oh, these polls don't mean nothing. This is a snapshot. They had to keep comparing them to, President Obama and Ronald Reagan. Oh, you mean like Jordan? That's like saying somebody can win a championship because Jordan did it. It's like, you mean like the best player? You mean like the best people in politics? Like Obama, they call that Obama since Ronald Reagan. But this headline here kind of sums up the segment, and that is Trump is ahead of Biden in 5 out of 6 swing states. And this is what have them in a panic. I'll read you, or I read just this snippet I had instead of the full article. This is from Vanity Fair. There's a ton of articles, by the way. When you search this poll, there's a bunch of articles that come up. Everybody's talking about it. But let me read this quote. The deterioration, I'll make it bigger for those that might be watching on their phone and reading along, so I'll make it bigger for you. The deterioration in Mr. Biden's standing in spanning virtually every demographic group, Nick. Every demographic group. Yet it yields an especially deep blow to his electoral support among young Black and Hispanic voters, with Mr. Trump obtaining previously unimaginable levels of support with him. And I'm just going to insert here, this Palestine thing is not helping him in this area at all. He was already bleeding support in this area. Now this is just like it's just opening the wound up. And then this other quote from the same article, in the swing states of Arizona, listen to these states, Arizona, Georgia. I think both of those states he won last time by a hair. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, all of which Biden won. All of those he won, by the way. In 2020, Trump is running ahead by 3 to 10 percentage points, with Trump's lead larger in the Sun Belt states and slimmer in the northern industrial ones. Biden is only leading in Wisconsin, polling ahead by 2 points. And Nevada is one that's telling also. And you'll see it in some of the coverage we do when we get to this DC protest segment, which is next. Nick, Nevada is up 10-point margin, and the 10-point margin is made up by young Black and brown Hispanics in Nevada. So this, in a couple of segments we're going to watch, they speak to this like, wow, this number here in Nevada is telling that young people are turning away from Joe Biden. Why do you think, Nick, besides the Palestinian thing, what have you sort of been hearing, or what is your take on why is he bleeding so much young support to the point where Morning Joe is panicking at this level? What is happening in your opinion?
I think many people who have a guilty conscience for voting for him, the same way I had a guilty conscience for voting for Barack Obama in 2012. Wasn't my first rodeo. First time made that die with 2016, but everyone had different progressions. Everyone had different stages. There were a lot of people that listened to the wrong people, like Hassan Piker, who just said, he's like, I might not vote for Biden now, maybe not. And then Hassan liberal-minded audience, they was freaking out on Twitter. Hassan said he might not vote for Biden. They listened to Voss that said that Biden lesser evil. And now they see Joe Biden committing genocide, deporting more people than Trump. All these things that will allow him to continue. Democrats being complicit with Cop City, Joe Biden taking COVID funds, sending to the police. Joe Biden did everything that Donald Trump wanted to do, but he did it more effectively. He's the most effective evil. Not saying that anyone's better or less, but Joe Biden is the most effective. That's just a fucking fact based on what they got done. So there are people who are good faith. The people I don't have anger towards, I explained before, my anger are the people who knew about Biden. They told people that to vote Biden. The propagandists. There are people who legitimately want to do best for the world, reduce evil, and they were tricked by those scumbags like Hassan Piker, Vosh, the Humanist Report. I know Zach from Vanguard voted for him.
Yeah.
Jordan, who was making an argument consistently on status quo that he's like, man, I was on the streets. I saw how crazy Trump supporters are. Trump supporters are crazy. So you need to ignore the neoliberals. Like that's one of the things that cause tension between us. I'm like, bro, we're not gonna be cool if you're over here advocating for Jim Crow Joe, and he wondering why. You're like, man, Nick could be cool, and all of a sudden they turn on us because you advocating for Jim Crow Joe. It's not a game. It's not a social club for me. Like that's something that immediately would turn me off because people who know his record, like Jordan and many other people, and they still told people who don't know that Joe Biden was good. You guys have a massive sin that you guys got to make up for. Like it's one thing, and I don't have any anger. And I know maybe some people may misconstrue like what I'm saying, but I don't have anger for the misinformed Biden voter, misinformed Democrat. The same way I don't got anger for a misinformed Trump supporter. I have anger at Ben Shapiro for tricking the Trump supporter. Yeah. I have anger at Cenk Uygur and Sam Cedar and Hassan Piker and Vosh for tricking young people who watch them play video games into vote for a genocidal party. So those people who are good faith are realizing they fucked up. I don't know if they're making the connection that their heroes lied to them or not, but they realizing they made a mistake and they're correcting it because they're good faith people. So to answer your question, that is what's going on. Now, there is something I want to add to the last segment.
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys, Al Sharpton, he had to explain what's going on to Black people. And I hold the Black Congressional Caucus with contempt. And my number one focus, my first ever op-ed on Substack, I got a few articles I'm going to start writing again, was a critique of Black leadership more before anything else. People get mad like, man, you always mean to our politicians. Why you criticize RFK? You criticize Zionists. You criticize these people. I'm like, yeah, but I go after and I try to clean up the sellouts of my community first and foremost. That's why that was the first ever op-ed I wrote. I constantly target these people. When I got into politics, my number one goal, like pre-Bernie, was to get as many Black people to stop supporting people like Obama as possible. Like, and everyone know me as, oh, man, he's the Black guy, don't like Obama, and it feels good personally because I was vindicated by so many from so many people who now don't like Obama. Now they're like, man, the nigga had a point back then. You know what I mean? The Black Congressional Caucus, they team up with our empire and the capitalist class to oppress us. The civil rights movement was left undone. What the capitalists did was adjust to the outrage and allow the most spineless sellouts among us a seat at the table, and they called it civil rights. We didn't give you a seat at the table, John Lewis. John Lewis, you now had the opportunity to destroy Libya with us. You want to help Barack Obama and other Black oligarchs destroy Libya? Yeah, we got civil rights now. Bullshit. I hurt people's feelings because people look up to the civil rights movement. They praise the civil rights movement. I'm like, what the fuck do you guys do? And that's a serious question. The Black income inequality is worse right now than it was back then. We got a militarized police. They being the fucking killing out of us the same way they did back then. But you guys are now part of the empire, lecturing us, oppressing us, supporting competition and other stuff, and now you guys think we're liberated. Now, Jasmine Crockett, who has been a superstar lately among liberals because she proved herself to be a loyal tap dancing servant to white supremacist neoliberals like Joe Biden. And she was always pretty well known ever since she was elected because she was young, relatively pretty, part of the new generation that got elected. But she rose to stardom during the Trump trials and during the Trump hearings because she was here to tell you, and we did a segment about this a few months ago. I know how many people remember this. She will use our dialect. She will use the way the Black working class speaks, even though she's not one of us. She's a lawyer. She's a part of the Black bourgeoisie, but she adopts the way we speak to sell liberal bullshit. So she's like, oh, hell no, we're not going to investigate Hunter Biden, not in my house. And white liberals loved it. Ever since that tap dance, she's been a star to the point where they bring her Black ass on to explain what the hell's going on with these posts, CJ. So here,
This is some funny shit right here. I seen this.
Yeah, this is a
some
perfect
funny-ass
transition
shit
for our
right
last
here.
segment. So here's
This is some
Jasmine
funny-ass shit right
Crockett
here.
telling her white liberal friends in her constituency, the suburbanites that she loves, that the reason why black people are not supporting Democrats anymore are because we're essentially fucking stupid. We're stupid emotional monkeys. That's essentially what she's saying here.
Here's the deal. Perception is reality. And so when you look at the data that was provided in this poll, it talks about how people feel. And when people decide whether they're going to the poll or whether they're not going to the poll, it's all about how you feel in that moment. And so while the facts may not align with their feelings are dictating their reality. Their reality is that they said that they feel better or they felt better when Trump was in office. But we've been trying to push back. We've got some very popular African-American artists that are out here saying things like, oh, I got checks when Trump was in office. I want those checks again, not understanding that that really came from Congress. So we've got a couple of things, the perception issue, and then we also have an issue as it relates to civics in this country and people not understanding exactly how any of this works.
We're dumb, CJ. We rule by our emotions. We are too dumb. We don't know what the civics are. We don't know the branches of the government. We don't know how our government. We're just dumb emotional animals who just react on our emotions. And not because we see Joe Biden funding our police state more, and not that we see them funding the genocide more, and not because our economic situation is worse than it was at the height of the civil rights movement. No, we just dumb monkeys who don't understand how government works. And this is what
Facts
they got.
don't-
Go ahead, CJ.
No, I was just gonna say when she says our feelings don't align with the facts, our feelings that the economy is terrible. That is our feelings. Isn't it a fact that inflation is up and all prices of I'm trying to look at it from her point of view, just trying to establish if her point of view has any weight. And what is she talking about? There's inflation numbers. What are you talking about? So, and she's a lawyer. So when I add that together, Nick, this tells me this isn't a duped Negro servant. This is where is the contract? Where's the Negro contract? Show me me the money right now. This is the one who wants it. That's who this is. There's no way. There's no way.
Bro, she's the future of the Democratic Party. It's like, bro, she is a superstar. And as many tweets as I can show people mocking this absurd point of view that the black people don't like Democrats because we're too dumb and we don't know how government works. We're not sophisticated. Like, this is Benny. This is one people that mocking it. But for every person I can show you mocking it, they're a liberal like, yeah, this is why we love Jasmine. Jasmine telling us how dumb the black people are. We knew it. You guys see how liberals and Democrats, they use the same tricks Republicans use. This is their Candace Owens. You know how Republicans recruit Candace Owens to tell white Republicans stuff that make them feel good? She's done the same thing for white liberals, and they don't realize it. So for every one tweet I can show you guys criticizing, I just look at the tab. I can find you liberals praising her for this too. So here's one
That's because Nick. It's all about how you say it. Because, like you said, this is Candace Owens. What's the difference in Candace Owens saying black people keep voting for Democrats because they're dumb as fuck and they're poor, they don't know what to do? What's the difference in what she said? She's using less sugar-coated language to say the same thing. Isn't that the same thing they're saying about Donald Trump and Joe Biden? They're the same person, but one has a potty mouth and one listens and follows directions and barely can read the teleprompter, but basically follows directions and speaks politely, even though he put more black and brown and indigenous bodies in prison. It's all about the frosting. It's all about the frosting. It's not at all about the meat or the cake. But go ahead.
Yeah, you guys see some of the reactions. I don't know who Wendy is. Who is that? Yeah, she's MAGA. But this is like what anyone would say. That's my reaction to seeing that. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett just called the black population stupid. That's what she did. Wendy's MAGA, I'm a fucking communist, but everyone can see that. That's, oh, they don't know how civics, they rule by their emotions, they're not factual. Absurd. And this is a tweet I heard earlier. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett says black voters aren't supporting Joe Biden as enthusiastically because feelings are dictating their reality. Man, imagine if Candace Owens or anyone on the right said that.
Yeah.
You know how liberals would react? Then they aren't understanding exactly how any of this works. So, scrolling through some of these tweets, CJ, there are right wingers that calling this out because they're like, don't you guys say we do this? So right wingers are calling the hypocrisy out. They're like, don't you guys criticize us for doing this? So this is the last tweet I show on this segment. It was a good transition from our last one, and we can get to the massive Palestine protest. Here's Sabby Sabs, the brilliant, amazing Sabby. She said, "I knew Jasmine was a fraud when she ran for office. We all did. She already running cover for Biden and essentially calling Black people stupid. So you have me who agree, Sabby who agree, and you have people on the right. Anyone who's not a liberal, colonized mind, hear what she says." And she is telling white liberals that, no, you're doing okay. You're doing just fine. It's just, my people are so dumb. God damn it. And so, no, I'll get them in line. We just got to do some more work. We're going to hit the street and we're going to help propagandize our people some more. I had none but contempt for these people. These are the same people who sold our people out to Cop City. These are the same people who sold our empire to the police state. They constantly doing apologetics for this neoliberal party. There was outrage about about ICE and how Haitians were treated under Donald Trump. And then Biden deported more Haitians in 1 year than Trump did his entire office. Now they're not mentioning it at all. Now that malicious hypocrisy. You know what I mean? Like there are people that have like hypocrisy they haven't checked. We constantly have ideological consistencies we try and check. You may accidentally be hypocritical or something, but that's malicious. Like there's a difference, guys. And we gotta know to spot the difference. Like there's innocent, you didn't think this through hypocrisy, and then there's you're being outright malicious. Like you was upset about the ICE situation, you was upset about war, you was upset about that with Trump, and now you're apologizing about it with Biden. That's malicious hypocrisy where you know exactly what you're doing. Any last words on this, CJ? I'll just read the 2 super chats I saw before we get to the next super chat. And you can
they always can find people like this. It's just amazing to me. You would thinking, okay, looks like we're, once Al Sharpton's done, that's it. And then they grow a Hakeem Jeffries. Then they grow a Stacey. Stacey Abrams was one of the ones that came out of the blue to me. Like I didn't hear about her until that last time they was trying to act like she was going to win. I never even heard about her. But they somehow find these quote unquote Black superstars. They just unlimitless. But they can't seem to find people like Rome for some reason, Nick. I don't know, but you can go ahead with the super chat. I'll get ready for the next segment here.
And the next segment is gonna be, we got quite a bit of stuff to cover, so we're gonna be bouncing off a lot of
it's a lot of receipts.
We're gonna be bouncing off a lot of receipts. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
This is thank you for $10. Purple Philosophy. We'd love to see you guys go on George Galloway on the Mother of All Talk Shows. I've been on there before. It's very, very fun.
They may not know you have been on there before. What episode? So they can look it up because they don't know. I think Sabby's been on there too. I don't know what the name of her episode is.
I think Sabby's been on there too. Yeah, I've been on there before.
Sabby's been on there too.
He follows on Twitter. He retweets me a lot. So like me and George is cool, but he's been on.
What was your topic? What was your topic when you went on there?
What did we talk about?
If you don't remember, that's okay. Just
between Glenn, Jimmy, George, like all these shows, I it gotta take me a second to remember. But
okay, no worries.
Yeah, I was on there before. You can just. I remember I had the clip where I was talking about mutual aid. That was one of the segments, but we were talking about foreign policy. There was a lot of stuff we were talking about. But I had a clip I posted on Twitter. You guys can. I'm pretty sure you're gonna Google and find it shortly. George Galloway, by the way, has been on fire, because this has been one of his issues. Like this is of course, he's a master of all these issues, right? Especially foreign policy. But Israel Palestine was his issue. Like this is something that was close to his work. Like he's been covering since the 70s. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he's been going ham. UK media and the UK establishment been having a hard time dealing with them. Like they've been sticking the attacks that he's been going through by the establishment have been intense. Like he's like the Jimmy Dore of the UK, but like times 3 or 4. Like they hate this because he was part of the establishment too. I think he was like in the parliament or something. He was like a part of the club, but he always was a rebel within the club. And now he got this giant platform, and they don't know what to do with them. He's been calling out the Ukraine war And his work, particularly on the Israel-Palestine thing, has been very good recently. We've been doing our thing here. Like you got to say, everyone who's been following this from day one, step to the plate. Black and Journal Report, George Galloway, Danny Haifa been doing great work. Sabi, everyone in our Midwestern Mark's been doing great work. The Palestinian Community Network, they fucking about to protest Biden. Like this is like it was go time, and everyone activated for this moment, and that's why people are panicking. What we're gonna do after this segment is gonna be probably a little bit longer, but I have a segment. It's gonna be another propaganda report where you have Zionists. They are trying to import their fascism on the United States, and they have been successful a lot already. But they're doing these segments essentially saying, all these pro-Palestinian protests, is it really free speech? Let's talk about it. And it's horrible. But anyway, that's gonna be a segment later.
That'll be a good segment. Yeah, that is a good segment.
Let me read this next super chat. This last one now, and then we can get started on this segment. Watch the movie The Black Godfather to see some Democrat power brokers like Obama. Absolutely. Thank you for the 1999 friend of the show, John. We appreciate the super chats. And I want you guys to understand this moment right here, and this is the intro to the segment, CJ, where we are seeing protests. We haven't seen protests this big since the Iraq War, anti-war protests. And we are seeing demonstrations similar to George Floyd on the Palestinian issue. CJ, do any of you guys have any understand how fast these things are developing? I've been following this for years. For years, I've been following this issue. And to see the protests that we've seen this past weekend, and I still maintain, I said it before, none of this is worth it. You know what I mean? None of this is worth the slaughter. But it is good to see that the tide is starting to change. And the segment I have after this is going to show the corporate media coping. That's another part of the segment. The corporate media coping with this reality where Zionists lost, fam. Like, you guys understand that Israel and the United States are isolated on the world stage. The United States is isolated and is blocking ceasefires. You know what I mean? Zionism, despite billions of spent on propaganda, despite controlling the airways and the narrative for years and decades, they lost. And that's brilliant. They are to the point, CJ, where they are forced to bomb kids. What did I warn you? What have Marxists warned you guys? People who still resist Marxism and that stuff. We told you guys, whenever capitalists start to really lose, workers got a little bit of gains. Oh, we got Social Security. You got a little bit of health. No, nigga, you don't understand. Once capitalists truly start to lose, once their imperialist projects start to fail, the violence that they will endorse, you guys will see how unhinged ideology really is. And once again, I can't spoil my next segment too much a little bit here, but Ron DeSantis and the right is openly against free speech now because of this, because Zionists have lost the battle of ideas. But see, that's my intro to the segment. I'll pass to you, CJ. There's gonna be a lot of
and I have also a slightly shorter intro, and I'll just read the headline: Genocide Joe. Massive DC ceasefire protest directs its rage at Biden. And the sub headline says a diverse array of pro-Palestine demonstrators railed against the president in Washington on Saturday as the Israel-Hamas war rages. And this headline is, I believe it's from Rolling Stone. I'll read just a little bit from it to get started. And this is all part of my intro to it. Biden, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide is a quote of one of the chants from the march. Hey, ho, ho, Genocide Joe has got to go. That's another quote. And the reason I want to make sure I make the point to read these two chants about genocide, because it relates to some of the videos, the Bernie Sanders video, the Pramila video, where they're being forced to answer the question, do you agree that this genocide? But we'll get to that. But to further read this the snippet, the Biden administration has refused to call for a ceasefire. Demonstrators demanded one on Saturday while raging against the president. The Biden administration's reluctance to push for a ceasefire in Gaza could bring serious electoral consequences in the 2024 election, as the protests on Saturday made clear their support for Palestinian human rights has blossomed from a niche left-wing cause to a central tenet of the greater progressive movement. And I thought that was important to read. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
They're mourning the death of the progressive Accept Palestine movement. For years, the dominant strain on the United States left has been progressive Accept Palestine. And when we cover the Bernie segment, I don't have any tweets that say, I'm gonna just go down the Bernie tab and show you people that have been holding on to the code of Bernie Sanders forever. Even they are turning against him now. You know what I mean? Because
what? I can't wait to see that. I got to see who these people are. To see who that
I don't want to call anyone out because a lot of people, they're doing good things by calling out Bernie.
Yeah. Okay. I want to look.
You guys know inherently that a lot of people that we're going to show, they held on. Like, people didn't like us. They was uneasy around us because of my critique of Bernie. Remember Marianne Williamson? Which was like, well, if you think that way about Bernie, you shouldn't vote for me. You know, like, my critique of Bernie hurts the PNC left feelings to the core. And even they're like, oh my God, greatest disappointment ever now. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Oh my God, Bernie. I've never seen this amount of anger on Bernie before. We are witnessing the death of the progressive Accept Palestine movement. You're either against Zionism or you're part of the liberal camp. And now people who held on closely to Bernie Sanders, they're now casting Bernie side to the liberal camp. And it's great to see, but I'll pass to you, CJ.
And it's because the sheer, and this is what you said, Nick, Zionism is causing the destruction of Zionism because of its brutality, because this is what's radicalizing the progressive Accept for Palestine group to be staunchly saying, fuck that shit, not no progressive Accept for Palestine. No, I'm going all in. Is these photographs that I literally can't see, and I have not seen. I can't see dead bodies of little babies. I can't see dead bodies of little babies. That nigga, I would run out into the street ready to fight like somebody. I can't keep seeing that. But I believe that's what's radicalizing people. And even this reporter, understand, he's from Fox News. But him being there, it's one thing to be like, I'm a propagandist and I got my talking points. I'm in the studio. But when you go out to the protests and you're out there hours and you're talking to people and you start hearing, and you're now the story is being humanized. And it comes out in his reporting on this. This is a Fox News report that we're going to play here. Were you going to say something before I hit the play?
No, we can continue.
I can't see you, so let me know when, if you want to stop. It's a short clip, 3 minutes.
Israel, and they're calling for basically an end to military action in the Middle East region. Let me step out of the shot and give you a look around. You can see Freedom Plaza here is within sight of the United States Capitol building. We've got lots of people gathered out here. Some of the streets in the immediate area have been closed off. All kinds of signage: end all U.S. aid to Israel, let Gaza live, stop arming Israel, ceasefire now. Also some mock caskets with Palestinian flags out here. People have come out for a variety of reasons. Some telling us they are just supporting the Palestinian people. They want a free Palestine. They want new opportunity for the Palestinian people. They feel like this is about 75 years of struggle for the Palestinian people. And so they're out here expressing their support and calling for action and trying to send a message to President Joe Biden. This rally expected to go much of the afternoon, ending up near the White House later this afternoon. And it has really grown in size. We expect speeches to start in a matter of moments. I'm joined here by a protester from Northern Virginia. Her name is Ivana. Ivana, why are you here today?
I'm here just like everybody else. We are just outraged that this is still going on. We're outraged that the apartheid state is being funded by us. And we're here just to let the administration know that it's an absolute, it's kind of a, there's really no excuse. There's nothing to say. There's a genocide and we're paying for it. It needs to stop, and we'll vote him out if he needs to. So
you have experience in terms of being a refugee. Tell me a little bit about your story.
I immigrated here when I was a child because of the war in Bosnia. I am well versed with the trauma.
You mean the Bosnian War that the United States was well involved in?
The multi-generational trauma. I've witnessed genocide happen in front of our eyes. I think the most frustrating thing is that everything that is happening is textbook. It's textbook genocide. It's textbook.
Now, the reason I thought it was very important to play this in the beginning or towards the beginning of this segment is because the Bosnia thing sort of gives her credibility for this audience or for people who, you know, who would be pro-Israel. Oh, yeah, we know what happened in Bosnia. Yeah, we took in some refugees. That's why she's here. You get what I'm saying? And how the United States saw what happened in Bosnia, you can't take away her sort of being given the expert hat of knowing what genocide is. And she's saying, I know it because I lived it. What is this reporter going to tell her about that? That's why I thought this was important, because she is saying, what are you going to tell me, sir? I'm from Bosnia. I knew, I saw what was going on based on their narrative of genocide happened. This is their narrative. You get what I'm saying? Happening in that their narrative. This is why this is important. So based on your narrative, I'm an expert, cable news people, and this is a genocide. This is so important that this is being shown on Fox News, in my opinion. But you were going to say something.
Is it interesting that I haven't seen any CNN, MSNBC report on the ground like this, actually talking to the protesters? And in the next segment, they're going to strawman them on MSNBC, the liberal network, and say they're essentially Hamas supporters. But you notice how Fox News is not good. You notice how they at least interviewed them. Maybe they was hoping they say some crazy shit. But MSNBC and CNN, they don't even like the journalistic integrity to even do that. They just straight up lied about all the protesters and said they were all pro Hamas essentially. But go ahead, CJ. I'm still here.
You know what I just noticed? That's Jose Vega right there to the left of him.
Oh shit, my homie.
My God, I just noticed that. That is Jose Vega
crazy.
right there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I just know that is dead on him. That is not mistake. That is him. Okay. So let's continue. I wonder if he knows this girl. No, he probably would be facing her. But let's continue.
Dehumanization, everything that I have heard in sort of the narrative of self-defense of Israel to justification for apartheid has been is familiar, unfortunately, very, very familiar.
Do you feel for the innocent loss of life on both sides?
Of course I do. And I also feel for both my Jewish and my Muslim friends here who are undoubtedly showed up here knowing fully well they're going to experience discrimination. 3,500 kids in 3 weeks is one thing, is unconscionable. But the fact that the narrative of self-defense is exactly the same before and after should tell us all that the language is never going to change, that the language of defense for Israel as a state and is going to be forever unless.
Why this is so important now? These people, Nick, can't say, they can't quote these misinterpretations of our policy, our stances. You can't say, anyway. Well, I don't understand why you think this is a genocide. She is breaking down the logic, and that's why it's important. Go ahead, Nick. You were going to say something.
It's important because this is the only time they're going to get the truth. Because trust me, they will later turn around and lie about what these people said later. Yeah. But this is like you're right, CJ. I'm not pushing back, but this is like the few moment of time where they accidentally get the truth, but only if you watch the interview while it aired. Then later you're going to have Judge Janine Pirro that said, they're gonna say that all the young people here that want Hamas to kill all children. They don't learn. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, it sounds like we have the same setup. I do have some clips from some same networks about this for this segment. So cool. All right, so 10 seconds left. Let's listen.
We stop it.
Ivana, thanks for your time today. Emotions clearly running high out here. The crowd has been growing, and we expect that they will march soon from here in Freedom Plaza toward the White House to send a message to.
So shout out to Steve for that clip. And then I'm not gonna. There's no need to play sound or anything. These are just showing you everybody the size. So these are all like 10-second clips just to show you that is massive, Nick.
Yeah,
That
this is like our Iraq
incredible.
War level. This is
That is
in terms of the anti-war showcase.
Let me play it with the
And it's
sound
like
off.
George Floyd.
But
Like
when
if
I
you're
saw
taking
that,
outside
I was like,
anti-war,
Jesus Christ, that is incredible. That is incredible right there. I thought when I went to mine, the one in LA was like probably 20, 30,000. And I thought that was massive.
I can't imagine.
That has to be that. I mean, that could be more than 300,000, but they did it. They did a little counter, and I'm gonna play that. We'll play that video
Bro,
too.
and CJ was so dope.
But go ahead.
Bro, and CJ was so dope. I don't have time to pull everyone up, and there was too many to grab. But what's also cool is that like almost everyone who part of the RBN community that was in Washington was there. You know what I mean? Like there were so many people that like, yo, I'm at the protest. I met this person in DC. That it kind of made me jealous that I'm in the flower state over here. But there was like all the people we see on Twitter, all the people that we had on show.
Yeah, I wanted to be there myself, but I just couldn't make it. That's the
one of
bad
these days
thing
I may
about
travel
not
to
being
one of
there.
these events, but I can't justify it in my budget right now. But one of these days, but it's good. But everyone who could be there was there. Like there was Chris. I see someone.
I saw Max. I saw Bree. I saw Max and Bree. I saw
Bree. Dan Cohen.
I saw Aaron Matai.
Yeah,
Aaron
literally,
Buck,
like the people who was RB and they was all there who was able to make it. So, this is like in terms of anti-war protests, we haven't seen things since the Iraq War, and that happened under a Democrat. You know what I mean? That's wild. This is why we mentioned earlier. It was almost good to have this to have Trump lose. You know what I mean? It was good that Joe Biden won, so people can get just another example of why the lesser two evil Trump derangement system of bullshit is exactly that bullshit. One of my receipts is gonna have one of these people protesters say that, yeah, we're not voting for Biden after this. Like it's just done. You know what I mean? And then liberals on Twitter, they react in no other way because they programmed. They said, well, what about Trump? People like, bro, that shit is not working anymore. We've seen Trump, we've seen Biden. We got a genocide under one.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this last one, and then I'll pass it to you for any receipts, and I'll get some other receipts prepared. Oh, here's the one I'm gonna play from Jimmy, but let me play. This is the one I was looking for from Dan. So let's play this one from Dan, just showing you different perspectives of the march. Nick, you know how diverse this coalition is here, Nick? This is the diversity that we as Marxists talk and dream about when we're talking about labor, though. Now, this is about Palestine, but this is the sort of diverse. I'm talking about it's kids, it's families, it's elderly people in wheelchairs, it's handicapped. It's you see the rainbow flag, so you know our LGBTQ brothers and sisters are there. It's just everything. It's black, it's white. At least in LA, I saw it very mixed. Yeah.
And this is and I cannot emphasize this point enough. This is despite the unhinged rank propaganda that we've seen over the last 3 weeks. It's over for Zionists. It's over. The only thing they have is the gun. The only thing they have left is murdering as many kids, trying to get as many people fired from their jobs, ruin as many lives as possible for the end. I've seen this issue a lot. In 2014 was big response, but I never seen anything like this. Not even close. Not even close.
I'll pass to you for some couple of receipts, Nick. Go ahead.
They put some mine up here. Pretty much same topic here. Dan Cohen has a lot of good footage of it. Here's a 100-foot long printout of the names of those killed by Israel.
Wow.
But Joe Biden said he don't believe it. Joe Biden's a genocide denier. He said he don't believe the Hamas ran Gaza Health Ministry. The same ministry that been quoted by humanitarian organizations, the UN, and governments all over the world for decades. Now Joe Biden is denying these names. And by the way, I feel extremely bad for victims of the October 7th attack, but Israel hasn't produced this. I'm going to say it. Like, there's still, like, the Gray Zone had a great report about Israel killing their own people on October 7th. And the 1,400 number that they keep quoting and corporate media quoting as fact has not been proven by Israel yet. There's been a Haaretz investigation into it, and they say the numbers are more like 700 to 800. Meanwhile, we got comprehensive lists. We see entire families being wiped out. On Twitter, you see pictures. Hey, this is this girl and her daughter, and their entire family was just wiped out. Like, people's names straight up here. So this is powerful. This is another one. Kind of some more what you showed. This person said, we are witnessing the largest U.S. anti-war protest since the Iraq War. Dan Cohen had a lot of good ones. So you see there are a lot of people in our circle that was here. So I don't have time to pull all of us. So I know Dan posted quite a few, so I'll just go through some of his. Giant showing here. There's another shot of the crowd. Very diverse, as you said earlier before. I mentioned the same thing in Kansas City. Like, it was crazy the amount of people there. There were a lot of good coverage from Dan Cohen on his page as well. And because of this, like, despite the Zionist propaganda, this is happening. Huge, and then that's and me and CJ, we talked about this early on this last month. How we couldn't even sit through these statements. A lot of the statements were so outright. Hey, there was even a hint of journalistic integrity in New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, and despite this assault of Zionist propaganda, demonizing the Palestinian people, you still have giant protests. You have numbers flip. We report on the numbers after October 7th, where everyone was like, yeah, kill everybody, kill 70% of America, kill all the Palestinians. And then people saw the reality of what they was advocating for, and then that number jumped to 8% Democrats didn't support it. Majority of independents and Republicans don't support it anymore. Zionists, just like Ukraine, damn, I don't have time for that segment, but there's a segment we're going to do maybe tomorrow where the Ukraine war is over. They lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw
the
that,
United States said we got to advocate for peace. So Ukraine and NATO lost the messaging war, and they lost it very early and aggressively. The same thing we've seen happen in Israel. That's why they resorted to violence. And this is Cory Booker. CJ, do you have anything else on the rally that you wanted to cover? Because what I want to show next is how Democrats, and this is based on what these rallies are showing, they have no idea how much they fucked up after supporting the slaughter of Palestinians. As I say here,
No. The stuff I have, it can be inserted anywhere. As long as we stay on Palestine, it can be inserted anywhere. But so go ahead with this one here.
All right, cool. You know how we do. We kind of ad-lib in here.
Yeah.
So there's no peace for Democrats now because these massive amount of demonstrations for Palestine. And now these people, they're not just going to show up at one protest and let it go. There's no peace anywhere. Joe Biden's about to be in Chicago in a few days. Palestinian Community Network and the many other people about to protest him. We got to hold the police state, don't go after him. But here's Cory Booker. And this is amazing because we know Cory Booker is one of my favorite people to roast. One of the biggest sellouts. His entire career was made by the Israeli lobby. Just like Richie Torres, just like Hakeem Jeffries. These Black Congressional Caucus members like Cory Booker, they fight for Israel harder than they fight for their community, even pretend. Like, we know they fight for our community, not at all, but they don't even do the pretend fighting as much as they do for Israel. So I love that many people are taking the no justice, no peace approach to heart, because none of anyone that had anything to do with the genocide, including Bernie Sanders, anybody, should have no peace. No, let's get into the clip.
I want to call out to everybody right now, these final hours, this is what's on the ballot. We should know in New Jersey how privileged we are. There are so many places in our country right now where people want to make sure that we have. This is what makes America great.
Look at him. Get the fuck out. Pause it right there. So this is the new thing they're going to be doing. Yep. They're going to immediately take credit for the current protest that they're getting against themselves. See, now let me take credit as somebody's protesting me. Look, this is why America's great. It is so fucking phony, man. But go ahead with the rest of the video, Nick. Go ahead.
And we know it's a pattern. We spotted this out a while ago. They have a focus group tested, programmed line to say when protesters interrupt them. Do you remember when protesters interrupted Jamal Bowman? And he said the same exact thing you're about to hear Cory Booker says. You guys understand, these politicians, they are not free thinkers. They are puppets in a suit following a script. I told you, I used to be a salesman back in the day, car salesman, phone salesman. Believe it or not, like when I first started selling cars, there was a script I was following. And I was good enough at that point. I was really good at what I did. A lot of people had no idea I was following the script. And that's what politicians are doing. They have a script here. Whenever you're protested, you say, is this the good thing about America that you have the right to protest? Deflect from the issue. That's their trained response. I want you guys to see it. And then this trained response fails because the response is overwhelming. We've seen it posed that 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. So we've seen plants in the audience that try to boot protesters, but this one was particularly interesting because there were so many people that supported the ceasefire, they couldn't even stop what was happening here like they usually do, CJ. And because I'm sure there was other Democrats in the room, they're like, yeah, we kind of need a ceasefire. So we're not going to bail you out here. That might take from now. I want you guys to see, if you guys see the same thing I saw, let's go back and watch it.
This is what makes America great. The power to protest. The power to have free speech. The power of America.
They start playing awkward music. I didn't catch that the first time. You see, they start playing music. They're like, we don't know what to do. We gotta bail them out. Play the music. I think it's hilarious. They're trying to throw them out.
Column A, all the way. 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 I want to call out.
That was a spectacular failure at the end. He was so panicked, he started to create another channel. Like, no, nigga, we gotta get louder then. What was that, Corey? What was that? But CJ, I'll pass to you. But you gotta see this. Democrats are screwed, fam. Screwed. And last segment with Morning Joe, you guys noticed that whenever they talk about why Biden's losing, they never mention that it's because he probably supporting the genocide. They did mention that, well, why Trump numbers better with Hamas, but what people don't understand is that Republicans going to support Trump no matter what. So the reason why Joe Biden losing on the Mustang is because Joe Biden lost a lot of Democrat support, pushing Trump over the edge. So you notice how
do they address that, Nick? How do they address? Think about that. Both parties support Israel. So how do you address 3,000 people who don't want to vote, or just address voters not supporting you because you have a policy that both parties are going to do? This is very hard for a corporate, establishment, and I'll bring up mine, corporate sort of media outlet to address that. And the way that they have decided to address it is just to basically demonize it. But let's go back to corporate media and see how they have covered, Nick, and I don't know if you've seen some of these segments, but let's go into a little bit how they have covered the DC protests. And it's very similar. Yeah, it's very similar. Actually, I'm not gonna tell you, describe it, but let's listen.
Meanwhile, anti-Israeli protesters.
Let me just say, this is Brian Kilmeade. This is not this is one of the he's part of the Five, or one of the Fox and Friends, one of them shows that's top show. He's one of those, and now this is his solo show. Let's listen.
In the nation's capital, tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters. Where do they come from, by the way? Flooding the streets, demanding a...
Where they come from, Nick? They're mad. This speaks to what you were saying. It's like they had no clue It's like, it's funny because it's so weird to me because we tweet about Palestine literally every single day. There's something to tweet about what's happening in Palestine. So why are they so clueless about people having these beliefs? It's so weird to me. Yeah, it's so weird to me. But
that's their humanity coming out a little bit. Because remember, these guys hang out with no workers. The only workers they see are their staff members, the people that bring them coffee. So when they see this shit, they legit. I think there's obviously acting and propaganda in play as well. I'm not dismissing that part, but I think to humanize them a bit, I think there is a little bit of confusion. Like, what? I thought we was all pro-Israel in the United States. I think a little bit of both. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I agree. Here we go.
Ceasefire. Could they even find where they think the Palestinian territories are on a map? It's a sickening amount of people calling for violence against Jews too, and the destruction of the nation of Israel. One of our chief allies, Mike Emanuel, live in Washington, D.C., was there for it all. Mike.
Well, Brian, good evening.
Now, this is the guy who was in the earlier interview. Now, watch what happens here because the guy on the left, Brian, tries to get the reporter to go along with some propaganda, and the guy goes, I don't know about that. This is what I saw down here. So let's listen to what he says here.
To you, yeah, it was quite an elaborate protest here in our nation's capital. When I heard we were covering a protest today, I kind of rolled my eyes thinking, well, that's about every other day in Washington, D.C. Some group is protesting something here. But this was a very sophisticated protest. You had anti-war groups, you had pro-Palestinian groups busing people in. We met people from Chicago, from across the Midwest, who had come in here to protest. It was very emotional, very fired up throughout the course of the day, ending here at the White House several hours ago, and they were storming the gates of the White House, very loud and very rambunctious. President Biden's not here, so there was no threat to him. And I can tell you, we were coming in here around that time, and Secret Service was clearly on high alert. If anybody wanted to take a chance of trying to jump the fence, they did not. But a very animated protest calling for an end to American aid to Israel and clearly wanting to stop the military offensive in Gaza. Brian?
Right. No concern for the 7th of October. They just want to stop the military offensive in Gaza. Mike, did you get the sense that they were getting paid, that this was so widely organized? This is not the organic.
So he's going to try to pretend that this is like the Tea Party. You know how they were funded by billionaires? Yeah. He's going to try to pretend this is some sort of, this is the only way all these people could be here is that you guys are being paid. That's what this is where he's trying to get him to go along with, and he's not going to do that. Were you going to say something, Nick?
We can continue.
Movement that stopped Bud Light. This seems like somebody pulling the strings on a lot of campuses.
There may have.
So actually, I do want to add one thing to that statement. The confusion is hilarious. I really wish I remember who made this point. I wasn't going to credit, but I don't remember it. Not my point. But someone mentioned how the establishment is shocked now because they don't realize that the Palestinian resistance movement had years and decades to organize now, especially since 2014, since the last brutal slaughter of the Palestinian people. We have seen the most organized Palestinian resistance. Not only am I familiar with the Palestinian Community Network, but I became good friends with a few of the people who organized the Palestine work in Kansas City. They got they got alerts, they are ready, they are organized, and it's been built up for a while. So these people who lived in the Zionist bubble, they don't know that these activists and organizers, they never gave up. You know what I mean? And as the support against the Israeli state grew, their organizing prowess was rewarded. Their organization was rewarded. So when people was ready to hit the street, they was ready to meet that demand. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's continue. I just think that's kind of humorous that they don't understand that basic concept. Let's continue.
That this was so widely organized. This is not the organic movement that stopped Bud Light. This seems like somebody pulling the strings on a lot of campuses.
There may have very well been people who were professional protesters who were in the crowd. I will tell you, to be fair, that there were people with Palestinian-sounding accents who had their families here, grandmas, adults, children. So they're definitely...
Yeah, they're being paid. He's like, nah, this is what I saw. Oh, they paying people with accents. They're paying kids and grandmas now who don't even speak the language. No.
There were some family elements here. There were a lot of people expressing frustration, not so much over the past month or so with the conflict, but over 75 years. And so I think a lot of Palestinian Americans saw it as their duty to their homeland to turn out and express support for the Palestinians and to call out the president of the United States and say, stop it, basically. And so, and even to threaten, you're up for re-election next year. Palestinian Americans are saying they're not going to vote for him. We'll see if it has an impact on his policy.
So they did show that anger and chanted a vile phrase about Joe Biden. We've heard that word before.
Genocide Joe. He don't want pretend like he doesn't want to say it.
Israel.
That's
At the
what they're
same
talking
time,
about.
they seem to be equivocating overseas, trying to maybe push the prime minister of Israel to do a humanitarian pause. But my sense is that there's no end in sight with this, and you might be looking at this every weekend.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right, Brian. And so, there are a lot of folks here who basically were saying ceasefire and that sort of thing. And some of them were professional lefties who, don't want any war, anytime, any place, anywhere. Probably the same people that I saw, showing up during the Bush administration when I was covering this building on a full-time basis. So that's part of it.
He's accidentally
But,
schooling him.
there were a lot of emotional Palestinian Americans, some who said they do not support Hamas.
Say that again. He accidentally did what?
You mentioned this earlier, but this reporter, who it definitely seemed like he shared his ideology, right? He's accidentally schooling him in his entire premise, though, because the anchor is like, yo, these protesters are fake. This is some nefarious. No, there's left protesters all the time. They protest everywhere, like Iraq. He's doing it in a very nice way, but he's dismantling all his points from not from the left, but even from agreeing with him. He's like, no, you just kind of factually wrong here. They're just people who protest. You got Palestinian communities that protest in here, and people on the left that usually always protest war. They're showing up too. So I think that's interesting. But let's continue.
Yeah, so I'll play just a little bit more. Then I got another quick video, a quick part. To
Hamas.
show you here.
One guy was very candid and told me he does support Hamas, which kind of stopped me in my tracks. But, that's what we saw today.
About 100,000, it looked like, showed up. Mike Emanuel, thanks so much. It's amazing. Mike Emanuel, Washington,
Listen to this
DC.
part.
Meanwhile, anti-Semitism is rampant on the streets and on many campuses and universities across the country, some of the most prestigious universities in the country. Jewish students are being threatened as pro-Palestinian groups side with foreign terrorist groups over their own.
Oh, it'll come back. It does that every now and then. Just give it a
classmates in
give it
many
a second.
respects. But do Palestinian sympathizers know anything about the terror groups that they showing support for, passionate support for? Perhaps not. Here's a video going viral on Twitter, now called X.
All right,
week.
so I
It was
needed
shot
him
in
to
New York
say
City.
that part, and it sets up this next
You gotta see the
video.
headline. Look at the headline real quick, though.
Oh, my bad.
Look at the headline, CJ.
Where'd it go?
The headline said, "Yeah, it said anti-Semites hit the streets."
Oh, there he goes. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So here,
anti-Semites hit the streets.
what did I do here? Oh, anti-Semites take to the streets nationwide. Wow, I did not know that.
That's fucking crazy. So these people calling for ceasefire. Palestinian people, as the reporter mentioned, who are Semitic people, they just call anti-Semites. And I am loving this moment because I have not been letting anyone from the right forget about this. Because remember, this is the guy, and I've seen him do his act before. Tucker Carlson and many people on the right, they pretended that it was the left who accused, oh my God, you calling people isms and ites, and you guys always weaponizing racial issues. And they used to mock liberals for saying, oh my God, you guys feel unsafe. You guys saying there's anti-black racism. Oh my God, you guys are snowflakes who weaponize all these isms and ites. And you guys see how quickly the right wing is to do that with their politics. The same people who mock identity politics are now using identity politics to smear their enemies, just like Democrats. And I've been having a blast mocking these people on the right for this. You know what I mean? This is one of the reasons my Twitter been going spoiled. I've been mocking it. You guys are the same. You guys are liberals. Exactly what I say. You got the same way. You guys laugh at liberals for calling A1 racist. You guys do the same thing because you guys can't refute our points. So when they call me anti-Semite, I laugh. They don't even try anymore on Twitter, CJ, because I'm like, that's hilarious. I thought we was the one who play identity politics according to you guys because we talk about the material conditions of disenfranchised communities and state violence. You see how quickly they are? And these same people are the same people who believe that anti-white racism is the biggest problem in our society. The same people that think anti-white racism is the biggest problem in society think anti-Semitism, which is Zionism, that they conflate those two. And it's, oh my God, look at all these anti-Semites. You guys are liberals. The both parties are the same. But I think I'm at my point. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now another quick clip to show sort of the unhinged nature of the response about the Palestinian protests. Here's another segment. This one is Jen Psaki, and I find it the more and more I watch her content, she is not good at this at all. She is literally living off her guests because of her connection. She's able to get guests. She like herself not good at this job. But let's listen. This is a very interesting interview on the topic of Palestinian support.
How do we grapple with the crisis there? Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She's the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to start with your calls for the ceasefire in Gaza, given the horrific impact on civilians we've all been watching. There have been a range of calls for ceasefires and different versions of it. So I just wanted to ask you, when you call for a ceasefire, are you saying you want Israel's military operation to end full stop and not restart? Are there parameters of a military campaign that you would be comfortable with at any point?
Are you saying we should stop bombing kids? Like, you have to realize what she just asked, and people don't realize how crazy that. You actually saying we should stop bombing kids? Let's continue. That's a crazy question.
That's literally the question she's asking.
Thanks, Jen, and
That's
thanks
crazy.
for having me on. When I call for a ceasefire, that means a stoppage immediately of Israel's bombing and attacks, airstrikes, as well as the ground attacks, in order to make sure that we can get the hostages back and that we can get humanitarian aid into Gaza and that we have a plan for how to move forward. I don't think the question is about whether we should allow Israel to take out Hamas and whether all the international allies would be in favor of taking out Hamas. That is absolutely true. The question is how to do that. And there is increasing toll, both with civilians in Gaza, violence in the West Bank, but also a question of whether when you kill thousands and thousands of Palestinians and thousands of children and you bomb refugee camps, even if you are taking out some Hamas leaders, and it isn't clear to me exactly who is being taken out, but let's say you are, the reality is if you keep doing that, you will radicalize the population and another Hamas will arise. Most of the top leaders of Hamas are not even in Gaza, they're in other countries. And so I think we have to be clear that we need a ceasefire. And when I say ceasefire, I understand that you can't ever have a permanent ceasefire. That's not really that's not really realistic. But what you do is you call for a ceasefire. It is a negotiated settlement, which is why I say that you can at least have a cessation of hostilities immediately. But I do think that we need to recognize that this crisis is not going to end and Hamas is not going to be taken out unless there is a political situation that allows both Israelis and Palestinians to coexist with self-determination next to each other. And that is something that can't happen while Israel is continuing to bomb and kill innocent civilians in Gaza.
There's no question there needs to be a diplomatic solution here, Congresswoman. And it sounds like
we can pause here if you wanted to before she asks her next question. Yeah, go ahead.
So apparently, even the people who are getting this issue right in the House, the progressive House that are actually calling for ceasefire, their take is still trash, fam. So Bernie, we're gonna cover Bernie later, who reputation is forever tied to the genocide supporters. Like he's just horrific on this. But even the people that call for a ceasefire, their position is not good because she made it clear here that she wants to squash Palestinian resistance. She wants the United States to squash Hamas. That's what she said. Of course, it's not going to be forever. It can't be temporary. And she mentioned how we need to get rid of Hamas. So progressives, their position is we need to find another way to squash Palestinian resistance without radicalizing more people, so more people want to fight against the state of Israel. They are taking armed resistance, which is legal, off the table on behalf of the ruling class. So the position is that we should have the Palestinians can work among themselves what they believe the best method of resistance is, whether it's Hamas or other things. But what we don't do is take options off the table, especially when you're part of the most violent institution in human history. Especially when our taxpayer money finances the method of war that Hamas is just copying. Israel created and set the terms of engagement.
Yes.
So they still got to throw this Hamas bullshit in there. And I'm going to debunk more of this later in my next segment, but we can let it continue. But even the people calling for ceasefire, they still are working on behalf of crushing Palestinian resistance. That's what I got from that answer. So even the best among people are not so bad.
That's what I was going to say. And we get this from, and I had the same sort of critique for Crystal Ball, who was on some show and Emma was shouting her out as doing a good job. I did a whole segment it's like, yeah, but your critique is still missing this. It still was a blind spot. But let's listen a little more to this interview. It gets spicier as it goes along. She's going to require her to answer her on the genocide question. And this is the first time you'll ever see Jen. This will illustrate how Jen Psaki understands how to push back against a guest. She just makes decisions on when to do it and when not to do it. So let's listen.
You are open to Israel using military action if it's more targeted, if the hostages are out, if there's assistance in. You're not determining that, but you're open to resumption of that. I did want to ask you, as Speaker of...
You see how it's so important to her to get out that her guest, Pramila Jayapal, is not saying to get rid of all. You see how she needs to make that clear? Like, I need to make sure everybody understands you're not saying that. You're saying as long as all this other stuff is happening, we can still be doing it as long as it's targeted. We know what targeted means when Israel says targeted. They're saying targeted now, Jen. But you see how it's important for her to get that out. But let's listen.
Emerita Nancy Pelosi said a ceasefire is a gift to Hamas. And Hillary Clinton said the same thing, and that people demanding a ceasefire don't understand Hamas. It sounds like you don't agree with that. But what would you say about their views?
I just don't agree with that. And I think if you look at the history of how these conflicts have happened, and even, I'm not talking about progressives who have said this. I'm talking about national security experts on terrorism, who have written extensively about instances where countries have gone in, including Israel, into Lebanon, including the United States, going into Iraq. And what happens when you do not, when you essentially go in without a plan for how you move forward? You might succeed, Jen, in the immediate short term. You may be able to declare victory of taking out one leader or another. You do not solve the problem. And I think this is very important. And I also think it's important to recognize that the United States is increasingly isolated by saying that we are not.
I thought that this was very important. This is why I thought it was important to play her interview, because she talks about the United States isolation, which you don't hear that phrase, and you don't hear isolation and the United States being isolated from any politician under any circumstance on any topic. So I thought that was very telling. Let's listen. Let her finish out.
And one thing I want to show how unhinged Jen Psaki and her entire ideology is, because this is the message of the Biden administration. A ceasefire would benefit Hamas. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Remember when they said peace in Ukraine would benefit Putin?
How is that possible? How is it
peace in Libya would benefit Gaddafi? You can't have peace in Syria. The point of peace is that inherently everyone benefits. That's what peace means. You psychopaths. Everyone benefits in peace. So the warmonger position is we can't have peace because the other side would benefit. Yes, that would mean to wage war, to completely subjugate and destroy the other side. When you want peace, you want both sides to benefit, to save human lives. So the United States position on every war, oh, we can't pull out of Iraq. That will help the terrorists. That will help these people. That's a warmonger, psychopathic argument that the ruling class makes all the time, and they don't even realize how crazy it is. If peace helps the enemy every single time, CJ, maybe you're the bad guy. Maybe, just maybe.
Facts.
That's crazy, but let's continue.
Do not solve the problem. And I think this is very important. And I also think it's important to recognize that the United States is increasingly isolated by saying that we are not ready to call for a ceasefire, that we are standing with Israel no matter what. That allows impunity for Israel to continue to do what it has done and is doing to Palestinians, killing children. I mean, Jen, I just have to say, one Palestinian child is being murdered every 10 minutes at the rate of killings that is happening now. Nobody has forgotten what Hamas has done to Israel on October 7th. I have condemned that. It is horrific. It is a terrorist act. Israel absolutely should, and the allies, including United States, should go after Hamas, should try to end, take out Hamas and find other
There we go. This is
You're
the part
calling
that
for the
keeps
death
her at
of
the table.
Palestinian
Yeah.
children. So I'm not allowing these people to whitewash their position. So just because you call for a ceasefire, don't mean you're on the right side of this. So you have Israel that say we view all the Palestinians as Hamas. You have Israel that's openly saying we're about to kill kids, anyone. We're willing to kill 50 kids to kill one Hamas agent. You don't give those psychopaths permission to do what they want to do. And they complain like, oh my God, why they kill kids? They told you guys that's what it means to get rid of Hamas. Fam, you guys realize why Hamas exists? The Israeli reason for why Hamas existed to this point is because they didn't know what the fuck Hamas was. CJ, you guys know that? They don't know where Hamas is. And now, ever since October 7th, we know because the leaked memos show that they wanted to expel all Palestinians from Gaza. But what they're now saying is they went from not knowing where Gaza is. Now they know exactly where every single hospital where they're at. You know, every single tunnel in every single school. They went from not knowing where the fuck they at. Now they know exactly with pinpoint accuracy. Is that what you really believe? Pramila, Jayapal, or anyone with this weak ass position of calling for the ceasefire, but allowing Israel to go after Hamas? We cannot let these people off. So I am willing to have a rational position on this where I'm like, yo, I'm glad that she has a ceasefire position, but that is not enough, fam. Like this shit where they give permission of Israel to kill people. What the ceasefire for at that point? You just want to take a break. Come on, everyone, take 5. Let's give everyone some snacks. Let's take care of everyone boo-boos. Let's take care of everyone injuries, and then let the genocide commence later. Like, what is that position? That makes no sense. You guys understand? I hope I make my point correctly. I hope I am. I think that's completely incompatible, and she don't even realize it. But let's continue.
Like, you can't have a position of still funding Israel and say keep Palestine, keep like those are incompatible. But let's continue.
Solutions, but this is not the way to do it. And the United States is the largest backer, Jen, of military aid to Israel. The idea that we cannot do anything about what Israel is doing, I do not think is, it's just not credible. The reality is that if Israel continues to go in that direction, I think taxpayers who are paying for that deserve to be able to know that the United States is holding Israel accountable to what President Biden has rightly said in calling for Israel to follow international humanitarian law. They are not doing that right now, Jen.
Yeah, Congresswoman, I think this is such a complicated, heartbreaking, difficult issue, which is why it's so important to discuss it with people like you. I did want to ask you about, because there's a lot of impacts here at home, as we're seeing. And a friend of yours, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, released.
Here is where AOC was put in a position like this, where you are put in a position to decide whether you are going to show you're with the establishment or you're going to lean on your progressive values. Your time to decide who are you with, and this is Pramila's time on the question of Palestine. And I've noticed, Nick, for the question of Palestine, I'm seeing that this is the issue that they have the most backbone. I'm not saying they have a fully formed backbone, but this is the one they seem to have grown, and I don't know what it is. It's just a moment, but it feels, and you see it yourself in my feed, for example, on Twitter, there's nothing but Israel, nothing but Palestine and Israel, literally nothing. I have to type in if I want to see something else. This is what is taking control. And maybe it's because what you said, the Palestinian community has been planning for this shit for so long. So they activated, and all of their comrades like us who here to support them is like, oh, they ready? Oh, they got a freaking rally? I'm showing up. Oh, they got that? I'm showing up. That you get what I'm saying? So that's what it feels like. So because they see the people in the streets, maybe that's giving them a little more spine to say a little more than what they have historically said on some other things. But whatever the case, I'm glad they're here. She said a lot of good things in this interview, a lot of bad things, but a lot of good things. Now let's see how she does on this question of genocide. Right, go ahead, Nick. Okay, go ahead.
Released a video on Friday about the war. I'm guessing, of course, you've seen it, but in case our viewers haven't, I just want to play a piece of it.
We will remember in 2024.
Now, you've been very outspoken about the need for a ceasefire, about the horrors, which we've talked about quite a bit as well in Gaza, but she's accusing President Biden of supporting what she described as the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. I mean, do you agree with that description?
Now, of course, this is genocide. And now Jen is going to give the definition of genocide in a second, and then we'll apply it to this and see if it's true. But let's listen to the first attempt at this question, because Jen is going to push back when she feels she doesn't answer the question. And it's also telling that Pramila doesn't give an answer to the question. It's telling. So let's listen.
You know, Jen, this is heartbreaking. Rashida is the only Palestinian American woman in the United States Congress. She has a grandmother who lives in Israel, in the West Bank. And the reality is that she is bringing her lived experience to bear. I don't think we can say we want diversity of views, but then not listen to what those views are. I think genocide is a very, very complicated term. I believe that we have to do everything we can to elect Joe Biden president. You know that I have been an extremely strong supporter of President Biden on the domestic front.
How does that work? You want a ceasefire, but you want to support the guy who's saying no, who can't get a ceasefire done. I don't understand this strategy, to your point, Nick, earlier. I don't get this. I don't understand this strategy because it's not going to get her job. It's not going to make Palestinians safe. Your strategy is not going to do that. So that's what I don't get.
Yeah, I told you guys that Pramila Jayapal's job is to lose. She has a Medicare for All House bill that she never fought for once. You know what I mean? Her job is to be the professional loser for the left. So she supports a ceasefire, but her solution to get a ceasefire to vote for Joe Biden. You guys see how she's leading people off a cliff, even when she's right. Like, this is about as good as it's going to get for Jayapal. Like, you know what I mean? The fight for a ceasefire. But even the best of Jayapal is still horrible, because even when she's advocating for something good, she's like, hey, y'all, I got a good idea. Let's advocate for a ceasefire, but let's support the guy who supports ceasefire. You know what I mean? If you remember your analogy about two sticks and rubbing together, like what she's doing here is actually very malicious and harms the left. And this is the reason why the left has been in the position that it is, because of people like her. So even as she's saying something good in general, she's still horrible in her delivery and her politics in general. But let's continue.
And I think it's important that we recognize, though, that the reality, and I have said this to the White House privately for many weeks and then recently publicly, because I think it is important to recognize that we have a very divided country, as you well know. You have said that polls really don't reflect where people are. I agree with you. But I will tell you, this is the first time, Jen, that I have felt like the 2024 election is in great trouble for the president and for our Democratic control, which is essential to moving forward, because these young people, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, but also young people, see this conflict as a moral conflict and a moral crisis. And they are not going to be brought back to the table easily with, if we do not address this.
No.
She's like, yeah, fuck all that shit, Palestinian, yeah. I need you to go over here and I need you on record saying that you're against what she's saying about genocide so we can tell people and put this in ads. That's literally what she cares about. So let's listen.
No doubt, Congressman. I think we are seeing a generational response to what's happening overseas. But language also matters. And genocide is defined as the intentional destruction of an entire ethnic or religious group. And a lot of people...
The intentional destruction of an entire religious group. Is that not what's going on, Nick?
That is
ethnic or religion. That is literally what's going on. How dare you read the definition? You want her to say, yes, I agree with her that this is genocide? You read the definition so that she will be forced. This is an intentional. How is it not? Is it the word intentional? Because they're saying they're not intending to kill 70%.
And they're not even true because they literally say it. You have Israel officials that literally say we need to get rid of Palestinians in Gaza. That all Palestinians are all Hamas. And there's no civilians. We need all the civilians are on the table. Like they are. So even by her definition, they are literally committing genocide because they are telling you what they want. They're telling you that they want these people to die, and they're executing it. You know what I mean? It's a fucking genocide. Let's continue.
Do listen to statements made by members of Congress. So I just want to be clear. Do you agree that with the description of this as genocide and the president's role in that?
I am not willing to say that yet, but I will just tell you that Rashida is not the first person to say this. There are credible reports from agencies across the world, and the United Nations has said we are hurtling towards the genocide of Palestinians. That is not an isolated view, but I think it is important for us to focus on what is actually here at the core, which is over 9,000, I think it's somewhere near 9,300 Palestinians have been killed, over 3,000 children, plus 6,600 Palestinian children killed. And I think that where are 2.3 million Palestinians going to go? Where are they going to go? The attacks on the refugee camps, we are talking about a half a mile for this refugee camp. That is the density of how many people live in that area. When you release bombs that are actually 2,000-pound bombs in a dense area, which is something the United States has signed on and said we will not do that, but Israel has not said that. That is what Israel did in the Jabalia refugee camp.
So what Pramila is doing here is very passive aggressive. It's very professional middle class. It's not a genocide, and then she goes about the points of how it's a genocide, because she's making a point that this can't be intentional. Jen, she's breaking down 2.7 million people live in Gaza, the most densely populated place on the planet. In that was a refugee camp. This, and this. They bombed that. You can't say this not intentionally killing civilians when you know the vast majority of the people there are exactly that. So she said no to the question, or she said, I'm not ready to go that far, but let me give you the points on why people would say this is a genocide. And that's exactly what she did. Nick, did you want to chime in before I let her finish here? Yeah, let's let her finish.
2,000-pound bombs, Jen. And so the horrors are terrible. I think there are families of hostages, Israeli hostages, who have gone to the ICC and said what Hamas did is also a war crime and qualifies as genocide. And I think we have to make sure that we are taking into account all the innocent civilians, Israeli and Palestinian. But at the end of the day, international humanitarian law exists because we have learned from our past that you cannot solve these problems by targeting innocent civilians.
And we'll cut it. I'll cut that clip there and pass it to you. I think you were going to pivot to a different part you said earlier you wanted to pivot to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's do Bernie, and then I want to do my
okay
free speech segment. So
yeah, Bernie will probably be
the
a
reason I want to do
quicker.
Bernie next is this is the Progressive Conference ceasefire, and now we can show Bernie Sanders who's against it. I can read some super chats. I think you got the Bernie receipts, right?
Yeah, I got the Bernie.
I'll give you a second to get that prepared, so I'll read super chats. So we'll cover Bernie next, and I got a segment after that, and then I think that I'll be good for that.
Yeah, then that'll be good. That'll be good. We'll be good with that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we cover everything in the title. I think so. I will make sure we definitely get Bernie. I think we left off with John, so I want to give John a shout out. Leave a lot of great super chats. So that's where we left off. Thank you for $5, Roger, another friend of the RBN community. Thank you for $5. That's diversity you all talk about, but that's also the diversity the Dems and their allies fake about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's absolutely no diversity of thought in the Democrat Party. The black people they got in the party are the people who want to advocate for white liberal politics. If you're not advocating for white genocidal, state violent liberal politics, you're not be part of the club. Eric Adams, he's part of the club because he's advocating for some white ass liberal police state New York politics. You know what I mean? Karine Jean-Pierre is allowed because despite her Haitian heritage, she's gonna apologize for Joe Biden's horrible record with Haiti people. So we hammered that point many times before. Democrats and liberals bastardize the real concept of what identity politics really meant. Like, because once again, I got people who follow me who completely mock the idea of identity politics, right? But they have nothing against me, though. You know what I mean? Because what we're doing is clearly not liberal identity politics, because we're talking about the material needs of people. When I talk about the fact that black people are 40% of the homeless population, the people who mock liberal identity politics, they don't see that and they don't roll their eyes, because I'm talking about the material reality. What liberals talk about is, oh my God, Joe Biden, he appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. That's repulsive to everybody. Who likes that? That's a repulsive style of politics. But there's liberals, black liberals, write articles like, this is what Joe Biden did on the black community. And they list that. We did statements about that. They're like, oh my God, black people, y'all know what they did for you guys. He put Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court, and you guys are ungrateful. Who doesn't dislike that kind of politics? You know what I mean? But I think you guys get what I mean. Let's continue. Thank you for $5. That was fun. Do a morning Joe review. We do quite a few of those, as you guys see. In my statement, I have the first one is not morning Joe, but the second one is. I'm doing that statement based on time. We see because both of them
it shouldn't be that long. We're gonna let it play mostly.
So we got some more clown shit from morning Joe coming up. Trust me. It's comedy to me, man. Like when people like Emma Vigeland says that MSNBC is way better than CNN and Fox News. You guys realize that that's why we do these segments, because you see how ridiculous it would be to claim that. How dumb. And that's why I say Emma Vigeland is like the dumbest among the boutique left. Now openly say it. Like she hates our guts because she threw so many shots at RBN. She hates our guts because she's the dumbest. Like she said that with a straight face, and then she uses her privilege. She's like, oh, these dumb lefties think MSNBC is worse than CNN and Fox News. Like, are you guys seeing what we're seeing? Are you serious? we can't get through an MSNBC segment without laughing. Anyway, let me continue. I'll just talk shit now. Did the shit part, the talking part of the show. I think for $2, Roger again. Left protesting Dem press makes hard for Fox to criticize. Well said. I'm gonna just put the 2 super stickers up, and we're caught up. And then we can do the Bernie statement. I think the Bernie statement flow better with the statement, which is this. So I'll pass it to you after this, and then I'll do my last statement. So thank you for Biden and Noah from Biden. So I'll pass to you, CJ.
All right, so here is the Bernie clip. So I guess we can, and I'll pass it to you if you have a separate preface. So Bernie Sanders goes on State of the Union. And if you didn't know, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Pramila Jaya, typically, not in that last segment, but to Pramila Jaya, typically, there are the progressives who are bought on to shield for the Democratic Party, to shield for the Biden administration. They usually come on, hey, progressives typically want this, but you're the top progressive. You don't want that, right, Bernie? And they're usually fall in line. We saw in the previous segment, Pramila Jayapal had some hesitation in falling in line. So let's listen to Bernie Sanders. But I'll pass to you, Nick, if you had a separate preface for this video. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be short because we've seen Pramila, who called for a ceasefire. Bernie exposed himself as a fraud he is, and it doesn't matter what he did before. You know what I mean? Like and this is what people even like Bernie say. His reputation is supporting genocide now. And Bernie putting out these tweets and videos that he thinks progressive. He like, I support a humanitarian pause. I want you guys to take a time out, eat some ice cream, take a nap, and then get back to bombing kids. And then they say this shit like it's a progressive position with a straight face. So Bernie Sanders and everyone who's complicit with this is complicit with the genocide. They can't do this thing later with like, well, we condemn Israel going after civilians. Israel is telling you guys, Israel like, nigga, we about got bombed this hospital on Thursday. There's a refugee camp we about got through. Yeah, all Palestinians are Hamas. And people like Bernie like, oh man, who could have known they about to kill kids? They are just as complicit. And you guys are going to see this unhinged, straight out APAC garbage that come out Bernie Sanders. So let's continue. Let's play the video. That's my preface.
That's a good preface.
Across the
Better than
U.S.
mine.
this weekend, large crowds of pro-Palestinian protesters took to city streets to call for a ceasefire. And on Capitol Hill Friday, dozens of activists were arrested after entering the offices of several senators. One of those senators is here with me now, independent Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, thank you so much for joining me this morning. 4 weeks ago, more than 1,400 Israelis, mostly civilians, were slaughtered in their homes and at a festival. You've been critical of Israel's response recently. How do you think Israel should be responding?
Well, this is what you got. It's, I think, clear to most people. What Hamas did, and Hamas is an awful terrorist organization, is they slaughtered 1,400 people in cold blood. Israel has a right to defend itself. But what Israel does not, in my view, have a right to do is to kill thousands and thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
That's what they said it was going to do, Bernie.
To do with that.
So, and Glenn Greenwald been doing a good job pointing this out as well, where these people are trying to, and I won't pull it up because I love how Glenn brings it up. You have these people who gave Israel the A-OK to commit a genocide, and now they're like, man, what? It saddens me that they're killing kids, right? So I was just reading a tweet from Glenn, I think it covers Bernie as well, because Ursula von der Leyen and a lot of these oligarchs like Bernie Sanders, they're just now realizing, like, man, my legacy gonna be tied with this shit forever. I can't go too far though. So they like, Israel had the right to defend himself, but now they're like, man, Israel, you gotta chill with killing civilians. So just to wrap this up really quickly, that's essentially what she said. She said every life matter, whether it's Israeli or Palestinian. So what Glenn says, Netanyahu and other Israelis were crystal clear from the start about the kind of war that Israel intended to wage in Gaza. So people like Biden, this German warmonger, and I will include Bernie to this because this is who Glenn's talking about as well. Now they're seeing the carnage and they want to clear their conscience, CJ, with empty gestures like we're seeing now. What Bernie is saying here, where you shouldn't have, Israel should be going out after civilians, is an empty gesture after you materially supported their genocide. But let's video continue. But he's such a scumbag.
That attack. So the immediate concern, to my mind, is we have got to stop the bombing now. You had over 600,000 people pushed out of their homes. Where are they going? They're staying in United Nations facilities, overcrowded. There's not enough water. There's not enough food. There's not enough medicine. Not enough fuel. You got a humanitarian disaster. It has to be dealt with right now.
So, Senator,
but the issue is I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
Go ahead, Donald.
Okay, so
The
what
issue
you're
more
saying
complex.
about the lack of food and water and so forth, I think that most people in the West, certainly the U.S., believes that is because Hamas is hoarding it. And the other
Most people in the West, she said it. She's admitting that nobody else believes that nonsense. Most people in the West. But think about that. She is saying, Bernie, you know that that's not the narrative in the West, Bernie. You know that. The narrative in the West is this. And so she's trying to bring him back. Let's see what he does.
question is, how does Israel how does Israel destroy Hamas?
It's not just that Hamas is hoarding it. They are. It's more than that. That's what Israelis' policy has been.
Okay,
so it's a combination of factors.
Let's get to the other point that you made, which is really the key one, which is innocent civilians dying, and they are. How should Israel destroy Hamas post-attack on these innocent civilians in Israel without hurting, killing innocent men, women, and children when Hamas is hiding behind them and putting them in danger? How does that work?
Well, that is exactly the right question to be asked the military experts, of which I am not one. But clearly, Israel has a right to defend itself. Hamas has sworn that's what its goal is to destroy Israel.
Now, to your point earlier, even when they're wrong, even when they're right, they're wrong. So you have Bernie Sanders here. This is why social democracy is so weak. It's never going to accomplish anything, Nick. So you come up to the point, we need to do this, humanitarian, and then she asks you this question, and this is your answer? Like, I don't understand. I just don't get what is the point. If you're saying they're committing a genocide, how do you not have an answer to how they should be operating so that they don't commit a genocide?
Yep.
Unless you're Bernie Sanders, who do stuff like, I don't know anything about that. Which he seems to commonly say about military and foreign policy things.
Israel, they got to deal with that. But there got to be a better way than killing thousands of men, women, and children. So once again, the immediate concern is you got to have a pause in the bombing. You got to take care of the immediate disaster. Israel's got to change its strategy. Let me just say this. The United States of America provides $3.8 billion every year to Israel. We have a right. Israel can do what they want. They're an independent country. But we have a right to say, sorry, you need a new military strategy. Go after Hamas. But that means, do not kill innocent men, women, and children.
You mentioned money. There is going to be a measure before you relatively soon for the House passed more than $14 billion. And there is going to be at least some version of that in the Senate. Will you support that? Or will you put conditions on it?
Well, we'll see what the bill looks like. But I think it's terribly important that as we debate that to say to Israel, you want this money, you got to change your military strategy. The other point.
So the people, Nick, who are killing babies and women, innocent people, men too, those people who are currently doing it, and you say that, Bernie Sanders, you're saying you're fine with them getting more money, even though they haven't stopped killing or committing the genocide.
And they won't. Like, he thinks he's bullshitting people. He's not. People see through this. Like, people will never forgive Bernie for this. Like, he's terrible. He is enabling a genocide while trying to clear his conscience and his reputation while saying measly mouth words that he's hoping people don't pick up on. Oh, he called for a pause in the bombing. Like, you still want Israel to carry out their operation of eliminating Hamas when Israel outright said that Hamas equals the Palestinian people. You're not tricking anybody. Like, you are supporting Israel's elimination of the Palestinian people by supporting Israel's right to defend themselves, which they do not have. You're lying not only to support their genocide, but on humanitarian law. The occupier has no right to defend himself. What the fuck are you saying? Absolutely no right. And they have the right to bond indigenous people that live here. That is what you're saying when you say they got the right to defend themselves. Because Hamas, as I keep quoting international law, CJ, and people get mad when I keep doing it. Where the UN laid out how occupied colonized people have the right to armed resistance by their words, any means necessary. So Hamas have the right to defend themselves, not Israel by any statute or any law. So you're not even, in order to appear right and morally virtue signal to the liberals, you're lying about international law. But I'll let it continue because there's a lot to say about this shit, man. I'll let it continue.
Because we have to give hope to the Palestinian people. They were living before October 7th in a disastrous situation in Gaza, 75% youth unemployment, massive poverty. And right now in Israel, you're having the Netanyahu government, an extreme right-wing government with racists aboard, trying to make it impossible for a two-state solution in the West Bank. They're killing settlers there. So what we need is the world to come together to give hope to the Palestinians. We need a two-state solution, and we need to have many of the very wealthy countries in the region, the United Arab Republic, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. They are extraordinarily wealthy.
Yes,
work
they
with
are.
the United States, work with the community in order to provide some hope and decency and freedom to the Palestinian people, which Hamas will never do.
You're right about that. They have a lot of money, and they, to this point, have not been really willing to use that money in that region. to
Okay,
help their
here's the big
fellow
question
Arabs.
here.
I want to just clarify one thing, Senator, if I might. You support a humanitarian pause in Gaza. Some of your fellow progressives say that there should be a full-on ceasefire, which would require an agreement on both sides to halt the fighting. Do you support a ceasefire? And if not, why not?
Well, I don't know how you can have a ceasefire permanent.
Now, you hear what she said? Do you support a ceasefire? If not, why not? Why do you think she posed it that way instead of saying, do you support a ceasefire? If you do, why do you? Why do you think she presented it that way? This is a rhetorical question. It's because she knows what the guy's answer is going to give. She knows what his answer is to this question. She knows why she brought him on. She knows that he understands his role. And when it comes down to the bare knuckle questions like this one, he's to side with the establishment. She knows that. That's why the question is posed as to why don't you think that? Because she's already assuming. It's a tale that she already assumes he doesn't support that. So let's listen.
Ceasefire with an organization like Hamas, which is dedicated to turmoil and chaos and destroying the state of Israel. And I think what the Arab countries in the region understand that Hamas has.
Social Democrats are against your right to fight a genocidal terrorist state. Do you guys know how unhinged that position is? Bernie Sanders don't think you have the right to resist the state of Israel. And this is the question I posed on Twitter. If Palestinians don't have the right to resist Israel, even with armed resistance, then who does? You guys notice how the ruling class is trying to take that off the table? Bernie Sanders is working with the ruling class to take armed resistance, which is legitimate and proven to work, off the table. Because if Palestinians are not allowed to resist, then who are? If you agree with Bernie Sanders, which the majority of the right does, we might as well repeal the Second Amendment. What's the Second Amendment for? We're never justified, right, Bernie? If police came out and start killing, imagine they just start pulling black people out and start killing them, displacing them, and then we start resisting them. We're never correct according to these people, because that's what Israel did to the Palestinians.
Yes.
And I am taking the line that none of these weak other leftists will take, because I am telling you guys, based on my life experience and my humanity, knowing how I am, if I was put through a fraction of what the Palestinians have been put through, especially in Gaza, you guys know what I'll be ready to do? I leave it open-ended.
Yeah.
So how the fuck? And then anyone who say if they went through the same thing the Palestinians went through and they would have any other tactic, you are a liar. You are a bullshitter. Your ancestors didn't do that. The American Revolution. Give me liberty or give me death. Give me an example of you and your people doing that before I believe you. Everyone is bullshitters on this issue except us. Except me. Except the people who are unapologetically afraid to say I'm not condemning Hamas. And there are a lot of people who are too afraid to say that, even if they're right on this issue. If you're saying you will not do the same thing they're doing, you are full of shit. That is my position. But I'll let it continue.
Has got to go. So what we need right now, the immediate task right now, is to end the bombing, to end the horrific humanitarian disaster, to go forward with the entire world for a two-tier, two-state solution to the crisis, to give the Palestinian
This is the result of the two-state
hope.
solution. I just want you guys to know, this is
Senator,
the result
Democratic
of the, what do we have the one-state solution, CJ? What do we have right now? We got the two-state solution.
That's true.
Like, what do you think
There's
a
never
Nazi
been a
state's
one.
gonna do when they got another state where they got arms, they got power over them? Of course they're gonna implement apartheid because that's what Nazis fucking do. This is the result of the two-state solution. That's why, and I'm sure many people disagree with me on this, but decades ago there was a lot of debate between W.B. Du Bois, MLK, and leftists like two-state solution versus one-state solution. And you can make the argument that there was a period where that's a legitimate debate. We didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. People were like, maybe we should have two-state solution where everyone acknowledge A1 sovereignty. If you, after seeing the result of the two-state solution over decades, which is proven to be a failure, you still support it, just acknowledge that you want Palestinians to die quietly. But sorry, I'll let it continue. There's a lot to say on this, but I think I made my points. I'll let it continue.
Woman Rashida Tlaib released a video on Friday. I want you to watch part of it.
Mr. President, the American people are not with you on this one. We will remember in 2024.
That last screen said Joe Biden supported the genocide of the Palestinian people. I know you know the definition of genocide. It is defined as a crime committed with intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Do you think that's what Israel is doing here?
You see how she concentrated on the word intent? Because to them, that's what changes it. But if you take out intent, killing large groups of people in a particular religion or ethnicity, you just taking out intent. It doesn't take away the atrocities. You see how they're fine? And as long as you take out the intent, we're okay with 500 Iraqi kids dying, as Madeleine Albright said. We didn't have an intent to do that, so that makes it okay to them. Nick, go ahead.
And once again, that's CNN misinformation. Demonetize these motherfuckers. Because how can you say Israel is not intending to do it when they say they're going to do it? When you had Israel officials that say if we can kill one of Hamas's commander, if 50 civilians die, that's worth it. So what do you mean there's no intent? What do words mean to you guys?
Yeah.
Like, words mean nothing to a Zionist and their supporters.
What's going on right now is a horror show. We don't have to quibble about words. Thousands of men, women, and children are being killed. It has got to end right now. And one of the things that concerns me, Donna, is there has not been enough talk about what right-wing Republicans are doing right now. They don't want any aid to go to the Palestinians. Somebody should be talking about that.
You're such
Somebody
a
should
good
be
guy.
talking about how Trump.
If you haven't seen with your own eyes 100% proof that this guy is now a shit lib, what does Trump has to do with this question? Republicans, I'm sorry. What
do genocide in a mean way.
Why are you pivoting to culture war? Why are you pivoting to red is bad to this question, Bernie Sanders? I didn't get this far in the video, Nick. Right after he said the genocide, I just stopped. So this is terrible. Let's let them finish.
Somebody should be talking about that. Somebody should be talking about how Trump wants to expel Palestinians from this country. So it's, you can disagree with Joe Biden, but on his worst day, he'll be 100 times better than where Trump and the right-wing Republicans.
So you think that
are
Rashida
coming.
Tlaib should save her ire for Trump?
So you get what he did, Nick? He gave Joe Biden all this praise because it's like, okay, establishment, I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm going to throw you this right here. He's great. I love him. That's what he just did. This guy is terrible.
And the right wing,
Well,
and not
Rashida
her
Tlaib-
fellow Democrat?
Rashida is a friend of mine. Her family
Rashida.
comes from Palestine. I think she's been shaken, as all of us are, about what goes on, is going on right there, right now.
Yeah.
But we have to address that humanitarian crisis. But if anyone thinks that Trump is going to be better than Biden on
You
this
see how he
issue
pivots
or
back
any other issue
to
for that
Trump?
matter, I think
This
they
is
are
a
sorely
fucking
mistaken.
shit lib.
And I understand that. I also understand, and I know you know that words matter. And I want to ask about what she
I
said.
don't, look, words matter, but what matters more, Dana, is you have a horrible humanitarian disaster that has to be dealt with right now. You call it whatever you want to call it. It has to be dealt with. Women and children cannot be bombed with 2,000-pound bombs. And we need the entire
So when
world
she
community
says from the river to the sea, when she says from the river to the sea, which the ADL says is
ADL.
anti-Semitic, she says it's aspiration.
You notice she says that? Because it's not anti-Semitic. She is saying this organization labels that anti-Semitic. She's not saying these people, man. She understands to bring up the ADL in order to label that anti-Semitic because she can't from herself say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. So let me go ahead and say these other people are saying this is anti-Semitic. And understand, this is what they conflate. This is one of the things that I hate the most about this issue. From the river to the sea thing. This is like somebody invading my house, a home invader, and me is saying from my front yard to my backyard, you're not welcome here.
Yeah.
That's like me saying that to an intruder, but you're trying to twist that to say me saying the elimination of a established government called Israel means I want to eliminate Jews is absurd. But that's
Yeah,
what
we're
they
gonna get
keep
to that next time too. Next
conflating
segment
that
too.
part. Yeah, I know you're gonna analyze this, but from the river to the sea, that's genocide. No, that's not. A country is not the same thing as people, and people. Anyway, let me let this play, man. That's one of the big things that really irks me is this from the river to the sea thing, because there's so many people when they get the chance to answer this, there are always these professional managerial class type who never have a good answer for this. They never have one because they don't think of it. They're not thinking it from a colonial settler project. That's why they don't have the right answer for that.
Yeah, the idea that we're gonna allow people who support and cheering bombing babies to tone police us is absurd. And I've seen people go along with the debate. They're like, well, actually, when we say river to the sea, why the fuck are we even acknowledging this? Like, why? Like, why do you even care? Like, people who support the state of Israel, someone who supports Zionists, I don't care what they think about me. If I say river to the sea, they think I'm saying whatever. I don't care. I'm calling for the freedom of the Palestinian people. And historically, whenever people call for the end of racism, white people felt like they was attacked. Whenever someone colonized or someone called freedom, they felt like it's a personal attack. And the idea that anyone would play along with it is hilarious to me. Like, I have done nothing but laugh at these people. But let's continue because we'll cover a little bit of that.
But the ADL says it is anti-Semitic. Do you want her to stop using terms like that?
Well,
And others.
Donna, it's not what I want and anything else. This is what you got. President Obama just said the other day, I think quite correctly, and we all got to deal with it. This is an enormously complex issue. And slogans like the river to the sea, if that means the destruction of Israel, that's not going to work. People who are saying Israel, right or wrong, we're for you all the way, that's not going to work. This is a horrendously complex issue. You got a right-wing government in Israel, which is racist. And the people, by the way, the good news is last poll I saw only 8.
So Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to stop it right there. Bernie Sanders is saying Israel is right-wing and racist. At the same time, though that right-wing racist government is murdering kids and children, but he wants to give them more money. That's Bernie Sanders. That's the the guru of the left, the one they bring on to answer from the left perspective, but just seems lately he's been just giving establishment answers. And I think we can end it, at least this part of it here, so we have time for this last couple of segments here. If you need to prepare, I can read a couple of things.
I actually want to show you guys this to add to this segment.
Go ahead.
I know this is a very long stream, but we already knew it was going to be.
Yeah, we discussed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is who Bernie always been. And I'm very proud of the growth I made. You know what I mean? Looking and abandoning hope in all these politicians. Like, we call this out at the beginning, like RBN, unlike many other progressive media who was boosted because of Bernie campaign, RBN started post-Bernie. RBN, unlike the people who have no talent as political communicators and intellectuals, their channels only exploded because they rode the coattails of the Bernie movement. That is not RBN. We are post-Bernie, and we've been a critical Bernie from the very beginning. Why do you guys think that Bernie left hates our guts to the point where they're like, nigga, let's tell the chairman, let's send the chairman some emails and try to get the They hated us. The Bernie left hated us, our guts. They hate my gut. They still do, right? Why? Because we was right about Bernie Sanders immediately. Our whole infrastructure was built on, let's go further left than Bernie. Let's find another way to organize outside of the ineffectual social democrat Bernie left. And that thesis of our channel, many people couldn't handle it. Fam. But now these same people are now realizing that Bernie Sanders is full of shit. And I would take my L as I deserve for the time I did fall for Bernie. Because this was 2014. Remember the slaughter? Which is this slaughter is like 2 times worse than 2014. But 2014 was pretty brutal because you had the IDF and the Israeli military that was embarrassed as well. Them indiscriminately bombing civilians in Gaza as well. This is what Bernie said back then, where people called him out for his horrific stand. This is before Bernie Sanders became a celebrity, like in 2014. So let's watch this video, and this video resurfaced because people was confused. They're like, nigga, we've been telling you guys about Bernie from day one. And I'm glad I listened because there are a lot of people who saw the critics and they're like, oh, fuck you guys. But people like Misty will tell you, Nico House was another one. Nico House was an extremely early critic of Bernie. And a lot of people canceled these people. I was like, no, I'd rather listen to these people. I learned, and that what got me off of Bernie. But this is the kind of stuff that Bernie always been. So let's watch this video real quick.
Money that came into shut up. Hamas is sending missiles into Israel. Okay. And you know where some of those missiles are coming from?
He's reading an APAC script.
Populated areas. That's a fact. Hamas has used money that came into Gaza for construction purposes, and God knows they need roads and all the things that they need, and use some of that money to build these very sophisticated tunnels into Israel for military purposes.
For survival purposes.
Okay, one second.
Yes,
No, I don't want to be interrupted. Question was asked. It's a fair question. And I'm trying to. Okay, look, if you don't, you know, excuse me, shut up. Excuse me. Shut up.
Bro, Bernie Sanders shows more anger at protesters than he ever did Joe Biden. Like, why wasn't, like, can you imagine we got Bernie Sanders this fired up at Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton telling them to shut up? You notice how nice they are, that the professional managerial class is to liberals in the establishment? But then, like, people like Marianne Williamson, they go on RB and they talk to the oh my God, the filthy workers, the filthy protesters. And Bernie showed more anger and heat at the protester calling for peace than he ever did Hillary, than he ever did all the smear merchants. They called him a fake Jew, for example, like Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden called Bernie Sanders a fake Jew. Then Bernie Sanders supported her nomination into the Biden administration. But he would tell peace activists to shut the fuck up, though.
Excuse me, shut up.
This clip
Why
viral.
say
Like,
excuse me?
go ahead.
Why say excuse me if you're gonna say shut up? It kind of negates each other. Like shut up. Excuse me, shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. This had 1.2 million views. There are a lot of negative reaction to this. That's when I said Bernie Sanders. I don't have my tweet. Maybe I should find it. Where I reacted to this video. Where I said Bernie Sanders is one of the biggest con artists in politics, and that tweet got like 25,000 likes, bro. Like my tweets never get I get like a few thousand, you know what I mean? But I never get over 20K. I say Bernie Sanders is a fucking con man. Got 25,000 likes.
Jeez.
I never so, like I'm capped. Like Jimmy talk about this all the time. Like there's certain people that shadow banned like a cap on us.
Yeah, I have a cap. I have a cap.
Like 25,000 people saw that. So I'm gonna show you guys the general reactions to this before we move on. Just because I'm not calling anyone by name, I'll just read all of them. But you see people that like, dude, fuck this shit. Like Brown Joy Gray, another one, mega viral, 30,000 likes. Where Brown Joy Gray, a person who used to work for Bernie Sanders, said that Bernie Sanders is the biggest political disappointment of our generation. 30,000 likes. So this is the language that we use that got us demonized. That is now popular stance that everyone is saying now. This is Jimmy. I was pilloried for saying this about Bernie after he lied about the CARES Act and supported the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history. Good to see everyone else finally starting to see what a pothead jagoff comedian saw over 3 years ago. Now I'll just quickly scroll this thread, and you can see, look, here's Savvy. Like I said multiple times, Bernie is a fraud. Murray Kimberly said, I never thought I would thank AIPAC, but they now expose Bernie Sanders. And the reason why she said that is because this forever should live on Bernie Sanders' shame. The fact that AIPAC is promoting and tweeting your shit out. AIPAC saw what Bernie Sanders said. It was like, good boy. Holy, tweet that out. We got Bernie. Like,
that's crazy.
AIPAC tweets you out, fam. And they said Sanders answers Dana Bash about fellow progressives calling for a ceasefire. So they celebrate the genocidal Zionists. They love Bernie Sanders right now. So let me continue what Margaret said. And I'll just read a few of these and we got to move on. I never thought I would thank AIPAC, but they now expose Bernie Sanders for being a sheepdogging, two-faced phony, and a coward. Thanks, AIPAC. You made my argument for me. And I know my timeline, babe, but I'll tell you guys, there are people that are social democrats who hate me that are now condemning Bernie. And I'm like, why? I was like, Joe, I can't believe this person is saying fuck Bernie. I'm not going to call names. I'm glad they're doing it. But, bro, I've seen people that are the biggest Bernie nut rider. People like, RBN only criticized Bernie for clicks and likes. And now even they're like, man, they would never say RBN is right. But even they're like, man, Bernie fucking sucks, man. They won't ever say RBN was right, though. I don't have to read any more reactions.
No, we can get to the last segment. I think you said you had another one.
Yeah, in my absolute last receipt, and then we do a last segment of the day. Maybe 15, 20 minutes we see. But I want you guys to understand, Bernie Sanders is currently to the right of Ronald Reagan on Israel. And I actually just learned this. Like you guys, I'm always learning new things too. I made a tweet that went viral, but it pissed a lot of Bernie people off too. When I said Lula makes Bernie Sanders look like Ronald Reagan. If you search our library, we literally got a cut video like labeled that. Bernie Sanders make Lula look like Ronald Reagan. Even though Lula is not perfect, especially on Haiti, Lula called out NATO. So I'm like, bro, Lula's way better than Bernie on foreign policy. But now Ronald Reagan makes Bernie Sanders look like Ronald Reagan. If that makes sense. Because I just learned this. And so big shout out to Chuck for sharing this. In August 1982, Ronald Reagan, disgusted by Israel bombing of Beirut, called Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, I don't know how to say his name, and demanded he halt bombing. Now, when I read this, my mind was blown. Listen to this part. I'll just read the highlight because that's the only part I read. Reagan, who had considered Israel a trustworthy ally, was disgusted with what was happening in Lebanon. Israel's 10-week siege culminated with its planes bombing West Beirut for 11 consecutive hours. Reagan called the Israeli prime minister, and he said, Menachem, this is a Holocaust. And he said, Mr. President, I think I know what the Holocaust is. And then Reagan refused to give up ground, bluntly telling him that he had to stop the bombing. 20 minutes later, Begin called back saying he had ordered Sharon to halt the attacks. Reagan thanked him, hung up, and said, I did not know I had that kind of power. So Reagan was morally, despite all the horrible shit he did, it's weird that he was disgusted by this bombing. This guy, he was complicit with the genocide in Central America and South America, right? But this is what returned him, and he called Israel, and the United States have such power over Israel. He told them he demanded that they end the bombing, and they listened because the United States have that power. That's why people who pretend that the United States can't do anything about this, they are full of shit. They are full of shit. So I think I can end there. Any last thoughts, CJ? Then we can.
No, that's a good receipt there though, because I also didn't know that.
I just learned it today.
But yeah,
I had to put that somewhere. Right. So anyway, let's go on the brain segment. Let's get to the next thing. We'll get right to it. All right, I think we got time. I'm debating what. Maybe I should say it's for tomorrow. Maybe I'm debating.
I don't know. You think 10 minutes? I got about 10, 12 minutes. 10, 12 minutes. You think that's enough time?
Let's try. Let's get to it. So okay. I'll make a quick accelerate segment. Man, this is something else. Because MSNBC and liberals are joining. We showed this Fox News guy that was smearing the protesters, and we've seen this surge of young people that are speaking out against the genocidal state of Israel. So now you have these Zionists who are extremely well connected. They are well connected to the point where they get an invite from MSNBC. There's another one from Morning Joe. That's why I'm debating. I may show that one tomorrow. Like I may break this up to 2 different segments where we just have part 1, part 2, because Morning Joe does a version of what she's doing, where she bring on these Zionist students that come from these Ivy League schools, and they're like, hey, you have an article in the New York Times explaining why you think that students are being anti-Semitic. And my reaction is, how does a random Jewish student get an article in the New York Times? That's the question that literally everyone should be asking. How do the people that you about to hear from get brought on MSNBC? These people are Mossad. These people are Israeli deep state ops in some way. And you guys didn't know what I'm talking about as I go through this here, because they talk about a concept that everyone will agree with, right? Fighting against anti-Semitism, make sure everyone protected. I condemn people who attack ordinary Jewish people because of the crimes of the state of Israel. But what they're not talking about protecting Jewish people here. What they're really doing here in this segment is saying that you should not have the right to advocate for a free Palestine. So I did that preface because for a second time I gotta bite my tongue on a lot of this and let this play. But watch what they're doing here. They're gonna pretend they're being the good guys here as they advocate a crackdown on free speech.
And Gaza is thousands of.
And they also gonna just smear people advocating for peace too. There's that. So let's watch it. We press on time, so I'm gonna try to get through this fast.
Away, yet it is having a tremendous impact here in the U.S. with anti-Semitism on the rise, especially of all places on college campuses. Dueling protests and violent threats are raising tensions and fears among students. Here's my colleague Stephanie Goss with more.
At Tulane University's campus in New Orleans, Jewish students organized a unity rally.
So this is the part I won't get to this part. That part actually is worth watching because they're going to do this. Essentially what that is a propaganda segment like, oh my God, people advocating for a ceasefire is responsible for Jewish people being unsaved. The correct argument, which I promise you I will destroy every single one of these people in conversation about this. I've been making this argument directly. People calling for ending bombing of kids is not responsible for Jewish people being unsafe. Zionism is responsible for Jewish people being unsafe. In Israel and across the world, it is the failure of Zionism, and they're going to deflect it and essentially smear peace activists as anti-Semites, even though they are advocating for the Semitic Palestinian people. So I'm gonna let it play a little bit more. I think I predicted a lot of prefaces, so I'm gonna let it play a little bit.
Ashkenazi. She's a senior at Barnard College. Bella Ingber is a junior at New York University, and Amanda Silberstein.
They just found this student.
Cornell. She studied in Israel. Ladies.
Oh wait, you guys hear that part? They even said, and she brings it up multiple times in this interview. she studied in Israel in high school. So they brought on a colonizer, CJ. Who do you displace? My question is, can Palestinians use birthright like that, ma'am? Can they? Nope. So one of these people are literally a colonizer that went to Israel and studied in Israel, but they just found her, I guess. Let's listen to this.
Here, I just want to start, and I turn to you first, Bella.
I just want
How
to
are
play
you?
that part again. We continue.
Here, New York University, and Amanda Silberstein, a sophomore at Cornell. She studied in Israel for a year after high school. Ladies, thank you all for being here.
But you're so closely connected to the state of Israel, you don't live there no more. That's how closely connected you are. Palestinians in Gaza, they can't leave. But I'm glad you're enjoying the sights here outside of your homeland that you care so deeply about that you don't live there no more. Very interesting.
I just want to start, and I turn to you first, Bella. How are you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much
CJ,
for having us.
leave early. I'm
Giving us
actually
the
gotta get
opportunity
through
to
about
share
it.
our story.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I'm heartbroken. I'm scared, and I'm shocked at the rise in anti-Semitism that we've seen following Hamas's brutal attack on innocent Israeli civilians on October 7th. I'm shocked by the university's lack of enforcement of its school policies regarding anti-Semitism. Jewish students are scared. There are consistent protests.
During this entire segment, I want you guys to ask the question that would drill in my head when I first watched this. My question to them is, what will you have the universities do? So just think about that and ask that question to them every time they make these statements.
And rallies in Washington Square Park that are under the guise of pro-Palestinian, and yet a lot of the chants are consistently calling for a globalized intifada, which has historical significance, being violence towards Jews, calling for bloodshed of Jews and the extermination of Jews. I've been hearing calls for gas the Jews, Hitler was right, and I'm the granddaughter of Holocaust.
That never happened.
Yeah, they always
I
do
promise
this.
you.
They
I
always
promise
do
you.
this.
I promise you that did not happen. And if it did happen, it was a Mossad plan, a FBI plan, agent provocateur. I don't want to say that definitively, but you guys need to discuss this shit. I'll let
Survivors,
continue.
hearing these words be thrown around in such a careless way is harmful. It's devastating, and I'm the biggest proponent of free speech. I think it's important. I think that it's an amazing value that the university has been enforcing for a very long time. It's amazing. The country, it's the United States of America. Free speech is one of our most valued rights. But what's scary?
Bro, when I first heard this, I was like, she about to say it,
There's
right?
a butt coming.
Yep. But free speech, man, it's amazing. I love this country. It's fun. It's fantastic. Yeah, free speech, man, it's a great concept. Here it comes. But that part was hilarious to me. So I want you guys to see this again. So this is what this segment is really about. And not fighting, they don't care about Jews. These same people smear anti-Zionist Jews. They don't care about Jewish people. They work for the ruling class to crack down on your free speech so you can't protest a genocide. And that's going to become clearer as the segment continues. Which is why I'm definitely doing part one, part two. I'm definitely doing that, by the way. I made my mind because you guys had to see this shit. Because Morning Joe does a follow-up on this today. So we're going to do that probably
that's what I saw, because I didn't see the first part. I think I know what you're talking about. I didn't know.
Yeah, so let's continue.
It felt like a second part, but go ahead.
Yeah.
University has been enforcing for a very long time. It's amazing. The country, it's the United States of America. Free speech is one of our most valued rights. But what's scaring me is the line between free and hate speech is becoming extremely blurred.
She said the line between free speech and hate speech is becoming blurred. This is her coming out against free speech because she is saying people who advocate for the Palestinians' legal right to armed resistance does not have the right to freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is great, but those people that I disagree with, nah, I'm not a big fan of that.
These are calls for violence towards Jews. These are not calls for peace. These are not calls for Palestinian rights. These are calls for the blood of Jews to be shed. And
no one's calling for
that. That is what is scaring me the most. And historically, it doesn't take much to spark anti-Semitism. It doesn't. We know that from the Holocaust. This is how it started, with propaganda, with anti-Semitic rhetoric, and it needs to be stopped.
You guys are just college girls, right? Did you ever think, right, that you'd be back on campus? It's the fall semester. You're going to football games. You're thinking about planning spring break. That this is what your life would be like?
No, not in a million years.
Stop it. Stephanie Rule is the worst, man. Stephanie Rule,
on that
man.
one.
She is so like, like victim. Something. She is so that damsel in distress. You guys, he's doing so much. You're in school. You can't go on vacation. You only can get a small latte, and this is just hurting you, right? That's how she. But go ahead, Nick. I'm curious to hear more before I leave.
Yeah, this part is extremely interesting because it showed the class difference. Fam, we live this shit. You know what I mean? Well, you guys know why I don't take kindly to people smearing RBN. A lot of people recently learned. They're like, man, why you go so hard on Black Power Media? Why you go so hard on these people smearing? Come on, man, they just doing a little bit of smearing. Nigga, if you against me, you against our life. You know what I mean? My parents died because my grandparents died early because they couldn't afford health care. I know people who were victim of police state violence. But you guys see how they're like, man, you guys living this ordinary life. You guys are privileged. You guys going on vacation, which I don't know what the fuck that is. Like the vacation concept, I didn't learn until I was like 25. First time I ever went to I went to Las Vegas. First time I ever went on vacation. They're like, you guys young, privileged. You guys just ordinary high school girls. You guys go on vacation, all this shit. I just think this part is very interesting class analysis here. And you guys gonna hear the other one. She's unhinged too, the one on right, but she's hilariously unhinged as well. We almost done here, but let's continue.
I think a lot of people don't understand also the hurt that we're feeling after October 7th. Every single Jew on campus and every single Israeli knows someone who was affected by this, knows someone who was either taken hostage or someone who was killed on.
Now ask the Palestinians. You guys know that they don't care? You know, 2022 was the deadliest year in Palestine. And I was at the rally. Everyone was saying we all know someone who was killed by Israel last year. Now everyone knows someone who's been killed by this genocide. But you guys see, we all know what happened on October 7th. Now mention Palestine there.
October 7th, and if you don't know, it's just 1 degree removed. And so we're all just mourning. We're all hurting. We all experience such a great loss of life that no one at 20 or 21 or 22 years old should experience. And then to come to campus and just to hear people continuing this rhetoric of
did you ever think?
Can you pause it here? And then it's about final words before I go, because so she's saying they went through a horrific massacre of 1,400 people. Then they go back to college, and chance is really triggering them. Now let's look at the Palestinian side. They've watching a mass of 9,500 people is the last total I've seen, 3,000 plus children, and they're not going back to college. They're just going to the next refugee camp or the next place that's going to be bombed. And we're supposed to feel sorry for you.
Yep.
This is just pure cope, because Nick, in all of these segments that analyze this, you notice it's vague descriptions. It's something about Israel. They never give me the receipts. Show me what's all the beheadings that you keep saying, the rapes. Show me that, because we can show you all 1,700 videos of what's happening to Palestinians. And the same thing here. Anti-Semitism is on the campus. What? Because I guarantee you, when you break down the details of what they're classifying as anti-Semitism, is people saying Israel should be gone because it's an occupying force.
Yep.
That is the critique that they're mad about. But they can't argue on merit, Nick, because they would end up losing on merit. That's why they have to make what you're saying. Anytime you got to make your opposition's argument different in order for you to look good, you've already lost. And that's my final word. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna be watching you finish this segment. We gotta cover this tomorrow. We're gonna be back tomorrow because we got several segments tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing part 2 of this segment next time we do our show, because the Morning Joe, they essentially do a follow-up on this one. It's way short, and it's like 5 minutes. It's like condensed, unhinged shit. Like this was just very long, drawn out. Is a condensed. They bring on random students they find, Israelis, and they come and spread Mossad propaganda. So hope you listen to this last part, because I think the next part is very telling. So hopefully you listen to that part.
All right, Nick.
Because now they're gonna tell the game, because you guys already seen that they equate resisting bombing babies and the Zionist genocidal regime of Israel with being anti-Semite. That's already a deadly sin. But listen what they say later, because what this entire segment is about is them criticizing your free speech rights and ultimately condemning any form of Palestinian resistance and anyone who support Palestinian resistance. So as they play victims, they were telling people to shut up and die quietly. And I see people in the comments that share the sentiment. These people are disgusting. And they were chosen for a reason. Wait till you hear the next few minutes here.
Right? This hate even existed on your campus?
No, I didn't. I've never encountered it. My peers in class.
That's what's so extraordinary to me.
I think that growing up, I heard stories. I heard horror stories. Entire towns turning on the Jews, giving up their Jews. Peers.
What are you talking about?
Peers that were assumed to be, faithful to their friends, loyal to their friends, their fellow, German citizens, Polish citizens, turning as soon as the blame was put on Jews, as soon as violence towards Jews began.
But those were stories.
So people who are advocating against bombing kids are equivalent to people who turn against the Jews in the Holocaust? You guys see how brainwashed Zionists are? Advocating for a ceasefire, advocating for a freedom of a colonized, oppressed people is similar to the Holocaust? You guys are deranged. Zionists are unhinged. This is what they teach you when you go to Israel. This is the propaganda they learn from day one. That there are secret fucking conspiracies to go after Jewish people simply because we want to free Palestine. They always the victims.
Thought just your grandparents would be telling you.
I'm from New York. We have one of the largest Jew populations in the world. I never thought that anti-Semitism would reach New York. And I was naive, I think. I thought these were stories. I never assumed that they would be my reality. And that is extremely devastating. And it's heartbreaking to hear my peers who are advocates always for social justice issues, advocating on behalf of minorities. When Jews are called into question, when it's the Jews that are being persecuted, that are being threatened for their lives,
She's so disgusting because she has nothing to say about the anti-Zionist Jewish people that are being brutalized by the Israeli state. So she is okay with joining Christians and calling anti-Zionist Jews anti-Semitic and not caring about their oppression. But you're the victim now? Here? Oh, Jesus Christ. This is the unhinged mind of the Zionists.
There's silence and there's selective advocacy here. Selective advocacy. There's blindness, selective blindness, and it's heartbreaking.
Amanda, are you starting to feel like diversity and inclusion, which is such an important idea for so many of us, is suddenly not including you?
100%.
Come on, why can't we have a diverse thought idea? Why can't we include people who support genocide? Come on, why can't you guys be tolerant to people who are okay with Israel bombing hospitals and bombing kids? This is absurd. Why can't you guys be inclusive to a little bit of genocide? And now I think she's one of the craziest of them all. So I'm doing a lot of overtime. Make sure you guys leave us a like, man. You guys gotta subscribe to our Patreon. We're doing a long show for you guys today. I'm a little bit tired, but you guys gotta see this.
I mean, over the past few weeks at Cornell, there's been a surge like never before in anti-Semitic acts, in professors saying that they're exhilarated by Hamas's actions. Then even following the arrest and arraignment
did
of
not
a student
happen.
who posted direct threats to slit the throats of Jews on campus, to throw them off cliffs, to bomb their living facilities and the only kosher dining hall on campus. Even after all of that, professors are still spreading untruths and propaganda about Israel in their classes, which directly affects our Jewish community. Professors have been showing videos about why Israel is committing genocide in their courses without substantiating it, with really any evidence at all.
Professors are telling the truth about our genocidal state of Israel. How dare they? Oh my God. Professors are telling people that Israel is actually an apartheid state. This is unbelievable. They're not spreading our propaganda. This is anti-Semitic. Do you guys see what this is really about? Is it clear what this segment is really about now? I see CJ. I wish you was here for this, CJ. At least someone on the channel. Wait till I show you guys. Wait till we do part 2. This is what it's about. You're an anti-Semite. You're making them feel endangered when you tell them the truth about their state. The fact that Israel is a terrorist state. And I see CJ Berry losing the narrative. Yeah, I see you, brother. This is what it's about. I'll let it continue. I told you she's the most unhinged one because she's the one. She gave away the game. I just want to play that part again. I'll let it continue. She's against people telling the truth.
Dining hall on campus. Even after all of that, professors are still spreading untruths and propaganda about Israel in their classes, which directly affects our Jewish community. Professors have been showing videos about why Israel is committing genocide in their courses without substantiating it, with really any evidence at all, and telling students that—
Really? You guys really think professors don't have a PowerPoint? They're not showing receipts? Now, I'm a college dropout, but I've been in college before. Whether they're lying or not, they're showing the receipts. They're like, man, they just saying Israel committed genocide. Do you believe this? This is what they view as a threat. The Zionists view true, accurate speech as a threat, and they want to silence these professors.
Who say that they sympathize with the Israeli citizens and their horrific loss of life and the atrocities committed against them. Professors are telling their students that they are the real oppressor and that Israel deserved what came for them in classes.
They tell me I'm the oppressor. One of you guys, I forgot which one they said it was, one of you guys went to Israel to study. Once again, my question is, can Palestinians do that? Who do you displace in order to accomplish this? So the professor, whoever said this, if this is true, is based because they call out Israel as the colonizers they are. So they're like, come on, guys, stop talking facts. Stop telling us the truth. Unbelievable.
Today and yesterday, even after this student who, sent these death threats to my entire community, this is still happening today.
And why do you think that university leaders aren't doing anything, right? We could say—
so once again, the question is, what do you guys propose? Like, I just destroyed their narrative, but even if you agree with their narrative, if you're that fucking brainwashed, what do you propose the universities do? And there's no answer to that question that isn't deeply authoritarian and isn't anti-free speech.
Peace or politics in the Middle East are complicated, but anti-Semitism is not complicated.
Just 2 days ago, President Rosenberry of Barnard created a task force combating anti-Semitism, something that I'm grateful for, something that's unfortunately very necessary right now. And right now, there are protesters protesting that task force, protesting an email that she wrote denouncing Hamas's actions. They think she's not doing enough to combat Islamophobia. She's not doing enough for everyone else. When all she did was write an email saying that anti-Semitism is not okay, and people think that's bad. Like, that's black and white.
It's bad, you dumbass, because you guys are equating calling for a free Palestine and your opinions on the Zionist state with anti-Semitism. So these professors, these people are we condemn anti-Semitism. They're not condemning anti-Semitism. They're condemning peace protests.
to me. Anti-Semitism is not okay. And that's it. But students on my own campus, they're politicizing this. They're making this into something that it's not. I feel scared and threatened on my college campus, and people are turning it into a Israel-Palestine issue when that is what's at the root of this. That is what started this. But it's Jew hatred. It's plain old Jew hatred. And
it's Jew hatred.
I'm
People are getting away
so
with it.
sorry. Cornell, Barnard, NYU.
this is
Amanda, I'm
Hollywood.
guessing that you three ladies all attend your dream colleges. I'm guessing Cornell was your number one pick and you applied early. And it sounds like right now you are experiencing absolute hell. Are you actually questioning being at that school right now? A school that I'm guessing you dreamed and worked your ass off to attend.
It's a difficult question to answer. I mean, my sister attended Cornell about 10 years ago, and the Jewish community was very small.
I think I can end it there. There's another funny part, but we're going to do part 2 because the whole premise of this segment, the whole point of this segment is to advocate against free speech, to equate people protesting, calling for a ceasefire and a free Palestine and freedom for colonized people with anti-Semitism. And when they say the college campuses are not doing enough, there was college campuses that say, we condemned it. We put out letters, we put out statements condemning the students, and that is not enough for them. So when all these Ivy League schools condemn their students, that's not enough for them. So what do you want them to do? And later in this segment, they outright say, we don't got time to get to it, but they pretty much say they want universities to ban pro-Palestinian groups. Authoritarianism. They want people's politics to go through a funnel of the professional managerial class, and they will prevent you from gathering as a group if you disagree with them politically. That is what they're calling for. And this is a very wise tweet from Kwame. Black Lives Matter made racists feel like their lives didn't matter. The Me Too movement had misogynists feeling like it was illegal to be a man. And now, from the river to the sea, and people who want to free Palestine, I will add that, has Zionists falsely claiming genocide. Oppressors will always view your rights and your freedoms as their suffering. You guys notice how people call for a free Palestine, people who want the end of kids being bombed, that leads to the privileged white women suffering. You guys are saying river to the sea. You guys want free Palestine. You guys want a ceasefire. I am unsafe as they bomb kids. You literally can't make this shit up. So I'm actually going to say the next part for the next Nick and CJ show. Because there's actually a part 2 I'm going to do because there's a Morning Joe segment where they cover the same propaganda line. Let's see if was there any super chats I missed? Let me just read a few of these here. This is all theater. You have one fascist empire supporting another fascist government. Well said. I think for $2, Patrick. ADL getting sued by NOI. Oh, let's laugh out loud. I got to look into that. That's funny. I definitely got to look into that. Thank you for the $10, Jose. Here's $10 just because I am so furious right now with this BS. Well, I appreciate the support. That help us grow and allow us to cover the protest and expand our channel the way that we have planned. We got a lot of big things planned the next year. A lot of things planned coming up, but I can't even mention. One thing that's coming up soon is the RBN Christmas mutual aid event. We are planning on doing a toy drive. I know I'm for sure doing it. We are coordinating in a way where all our chapters can come together for a big mutual aid event for Christmas. That's just one thing we got down the pipeline. Like, we're going to be at these protests, covering that. And that's why CJ wanted to do these fundraisers for equipment, because there's a lot of on-the-ground stuff that we have planned. And you guys saying super chats, you guys supporting the channel, help us with that. So anyway, I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for watching. This was a very long show. It was a super show, so make sure you guys leave a like, share. We're going to cut this up, so if you guys missed some of it, we're going to have some clips coming up for you guys. We appreciate you guys. Have a good one.